I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to Highlights.
Who's going to break Hastings' world title?
Oh, he's done it! And look at these two go! He's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been!
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest round of the Formula SimRacing VCO World Championship here in 2023. Our 9-round season is very nearly at a close and we're visiting Asia for the second time, and indeed for the first time in 4.5 months. Welcome to Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix, the penultimate round of the VCO World Championship for 2023. Still 5 drivers in contention for our championship this season. The 3-time champion Rd.8 Simicic on top at the moment, looking to retain or regain his crown for a 4th time. My name is Ewan. I'm alongside Cam Rodger here for the Japanese Grand Prix. Welcome, Cam. It's good to have you alongside me again. We're 3 weeks post Monza now, into round 8. It's getting the business end of the season. The championship could be won today.
Yeah, I can't wait for how these 2 races are going to play out. We've still got, obviously, quite a few drivers in contention mathematically, but how that's going to play out is going to be very interesting indeed. 2 tricky tracks as well to finish the season, especially tonight at Suzuka. It's not going to be easy by any means to get the victory today. Just as we're seeing in the car in the background, spin off there, it's very easy to do that around here.
It is. That's not a Formula Ford. It's just missing all of its bits. Let's have a look at the standings going on the way into the Japanese Grand Prix. It's an 18-point lead for Rd.8 Simicic after that dramatic win against Dennis Jordan in the dying laps of the Italian Grand Prix, extending it to 18 points rather than receding some of that lead back to 8, which is what could have happened. Jake Dennehan is still in contention as well, although he needs to gain points on Simicic today to stay involved at the Brazilian Grand Prix. He's 33 points back. Colin Spork had 4 places, a 4-place penalty, from that last race, and so only scores 11 points from Monza. He's 4th, and then it's David Mocek, the final driver, still in contention, albeit a long, long way back. Petr Perlek has just got over the 100-point mark in 6th, just ahead of Alex Siebel. Yannick Pock, Adam Maguire, and Jonas Braxok round out the top 10 in the drivers' standings. A word on the team standings as well, by the way. First eSport are leading by 42 points ahead of Ferrari, and then Alpine are 59 points back. All 3 of those teams in contention and could win the team's title by this time in a fortnight. It's an exciting time to be at the VCO World Championship here, Cam. We're at the Japanese Grand Prix, not long to go now. As I mentioned, the championship could be won today, but there's some drivers further back who are not Dennis Jordan or Rd.8 Simicic who need to put in the work to make sure that they are still involved by the time we take on our final race in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and also just some drivers who want to go and get that race win. The likes of Braxok, Adam Maguire, etc. They've been so fast this season, but they haven't been able to get that race victory. So that's effectively going to take points away from the likes of Simicic, Jordan, Dennehan, and Spork right up at the top. And also, at the end of the day, points mean prizes in FSR. That's how it's split at the end of the season. So the more points you get, the more prize you get, and therefore every single point is going to matter, and everyone's going to fight for every position that they can in the final 2 races.
Yep, they will, but of course they will want that top honour of winning the team's title as well. Qualifying around here, I wonder how important it's going to be, because in Colin Spork's championship winning season of 2022, he put on a master show around here. last year, ending up getting a penalty after the race, of course, and dropping down a little bit to 7th in the end. But he came through the field, finished second to Alex Siebel. It was a pass on the last lap. It was a great race, but I wonder how possible it is in 2023 to make your way through the field in the way that he did.
Yeah. Looking at how the Academy and the Pro race went a little bit earlier, it's not the easiest to overtake. We have a really, really short DRS zone around here. It's only about 250 meters right at the end of the pit straight. But yeah, we'll have to see how that one works out, because the main issue here as well is how the tires play out. There's quite a bit of an undercut around here. The tires drop off very quickly. So therefore, if you pit early, you can sort of really get in there. So I think the strategy might be a bit more to play. Just like in Monza, what we saw in that first stint, everyone's going to be really close, tucked up behind each other, and it's actually potentially going to get a little bit awkward at the front with drivers sort of half going for a move and, yeah, not really wanting the driver behind to come past either.
We'll have a bit of a strategy talk when the race, or the formation lap, gets underway. But for now, we're heading towards qualifying. What is the push-to-pass situation like around here in terms of how much you're able to use? Because it's not like Monza at all, where you can lose it all in one lap. It's a bit different to that. How much management is going to have to take place over the course of today's race?
It's actually a very interesting one, because the track is sort of in two halves. So from turn 1, you have all of the S's, you have the Degners, etc., and then you have the hairpin. From the hairpin back to the start-finish line, you basically have Spoon and the final chicane. And then, of course, the start-finish straight again. So half of the track is loads of straights with 2 corners in between them. And then the other half is all the corners. So it actually gets a little bit awkward, because you want to save up, obviously, all your push-to-pass to use, on the straight out of the hairpin, the straight out of Spoon, and then out of the final chicane. But if you don't use enough, you can actually start clipping the battery by the time you get to Degner 2. So it's a very interesting one with how the regen works. Every time you have to hit the brakes, of course, you get the regenerative braking, the energy back into the battery to deploy. And remember, it's about 160 horsepower when you press that button. So if you can regen just that little bit more and use an extra second of that 160 horsepower on a lap, obviously that's going to equate to quite a bit of lap time. So I think the energy management is going to be very, very important around here, with how the drivers want to work it in the race. As ever, if you're behind someone, you can just dump your battery and get past them on the straight. But then for the next 3 or 4 laps, you're going to have to save. So you've got to be quite tactical when you use it.
Yep, and it's going to be a key factor for our... To be honest, I've always thought this about Suzuka. Everyone talks about its twisty nature of the first sector, but there is actually quite a deal of straight line speed around here. I know the straights aren't actually straight, and maybe that plays into people's heads, maybe, but still, you spend a lot of time on full throttle around here. You can't afford to just put all the downforce on. You'll be going nowhere in the race. We're on board with Yannick Bock at the moment, the virtual driver by TX3 driver. David Modchek, I think, is the first driver out there on the circuit at the moment. Maybe not, actually. He's not come through the first sector just for the moment. And somebody's actually gone off at the second Degner, I think, for a spin on the exit of that turn, possibly putting Jonas Braxop into the first position, if you like, out on the circuit. They are all driving alone. They don't have the traffic to deal with. They're in their own session, but they have only got 10 minutes to figure this one out over what is a relatively long circuit. Although high speed, Yannick Bock there presenting the difficulties of Suzuka straight away, getting wide through the Degner curve and going for a spin into the gravel.
Yeah, one thing you'll notice at this track, the exit of Degner 2 there, the Astro after the curb has been removed. So after the curb, it goes straight to grass now. And so if you drop your left wheels just over the edge of the curb, you drop into the grass, you go for a spin. And it's very difficult to control. So, and also there's been a big anti-cut put on the inside of the first apex. So it's very, very difficult. You have to basically pick the one racing line to get through there. Any mistake, and unfortunately, you are going to be going for a spin as Matt Williams goes to the top for Royal Blue.
Yeah, so 27.6 for Matt Williams, although that's immediately displaced by Jonas Braxop for Arnage. He goes fastest to 27.5. We're expecting those times to come down maybe a bit over the course of the session, and Dennis Jordan does just that. Alex Siebel as well. The two teammates separated by only 9,000ths of a second, but it's all in arrears to Rd.8 Simicic. A 10th.5 for the 3-time champion. He lays his marker down in front of everybody else to beat. And at the moment, Ferrari can't do it. A 10th.5 in it between those guys. Denahan, 400ths away.
We got Colin Sport coming across the line as well. Where is he going to put himself? 6th place, only 0.3 off. It was looking good in the practice session. Got down to a 0.1, but only a 0.3. Oh, not even that, 0.6 this time around. So definitely a lot of time to be found on these next laps. But of course, the rubber is going to be increasing as the session goes on. So the final laps might be just that little bit quicker. But ironically, often this season, the pole position times have been from these first laps. Here's Zalagianis, normally races for ground effect, but today reserving for Visceral, down in 16th place.
Is that a new livery on Visceral as well, by the way?
It was actually last race, but
okay.
They didn't do very well or they didn't attend last race, but we didn't really see it.
Okay. Okay. I actually don't know which one it is. But yes. Okay. New livery for that. It actually looks quite good. I actually quite like it. But anyway, Zalagianis slots into 16th. Can't see his teammate for the moment. I don't know if he's got one. In this race?
I'm pretty sure he does, but it might just be on the rotation at the bottom of the screen. Okay. We'll see if they've joined the session, though.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure. I've seen another Visceral rotate through there, but we'll find out. Thought Jake Denham was going to continue on there, but parks up and goes back to pit lane. Jonas Braxok has continued on as well. I don't think he went back to pit lane at all. He's just done a slow lap and then maybe... another one. What's the benefit to that, Cam? Instead of going into the pit lane in between your lap times and then going for another out lap, Braxok has decided to do, a timed lap, but really slowly instead, and I guess recharge that way.
I don't see any benefit of doing that, to be honest, because your battery will be dead and your tyres will be dead. So I wonder if that's just a mistake on the lap count. But either way, he's sort of a bit out of sync with everyone, isn't he, at this time coming in? But he's certainly a fast driver and should know how to do it. Pole position, multiple pole position sitter in the FSR World Championship, just 0.2 off. And I'm surprised that we're not seeing some faster lap times. As I said, we got down to the 0.1s in the practice session, and there's even been talk of a sniff of a 26.9 on a perfect lap. But so far, the fastest is only a 0.36. It's quite a few tenths, and tenths mean quite a lot. Oh, right, getting onto that grass once again, just like we saw with Yannick Bock, and he goes to abandon that lap.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel that Degner 1 might claim some victims in the race, because that's 2 we've seen already, and that's only ones we've been watching. Yannick Bock has now put in the best time. Where did that come from for the Virtual Drivers by TX3 driver? He's purple in the first sector, personal best in the other 2, mainly because he didn't have another lap, and he's gone ahead of Ewan Simicic by a 1/4 That was unexpected.
Wow, that is a very nice lap from that TX3 driver's Grankfist coming out to the final corner. Where's he going to improve himself? Goes purple in the final sector, up to 4th place. Nice lap from him. We haven't seen him do some nice results the last few races. He got P4 in the first race of the season and sort of struggled a little bit since then, but that's a bit more like it. Yeah,
I thought it might be Grankfist this season, actually, to do something, maybe a top 10 in the championship, and maybe it's still possible, actually. He's only 9 points away from Braxok in 10th, but yeah, it's maybe not been what was promised for Jan Grankfist. David Rodger is quite a long way away from his teammate here. He's nearly half a second down. He's yet to come across the second sector line here, by the looks of things, and he's not improving. He may well jump up into the top 10 maybe, but not too far. Ewan Simicic is going around the final corners at exactly the same time, and with a purple middle sector, surely this is going to be a new best time. Ewan Simicic goes over the line. He puts another 2 tenths into the field. That's more of a time that we were expecting to see. A 27.1. He seems very pleased with that.
Yeah, that is the execution that you need if you want to be the world champion, and he's certainly looking good. He's got a nice advantage into the final 2 races, and getting pole would be very, very important. As we've got Dennehan here just, doing a nice slow outlap, getting the tyres and the pressures into the region that he wants. He's got 2 minutes left, so still some rubber to be put down if you want to wait a little bit longer and try and be the final driver out on the track. But it looks like it is going to be some of the final laps. Fletcher is on a lap at the moment, I believe, going through the middle sector as it stands, reserving for Valet eSports, but it seems like everyone else pretty much is doing their outlaps and getting ready for their final lap.
Plenty of drivers who haven't set a time yet either, including the likes of Robin Panzoff at Race Clutch. He seems to be the only Race Clutch driver as well I can see in this session. There's Stavros Mercedes, the 2 valid drivers, 24th and 25th at the moment. And Danny van der Neet has not set a time either. He'll stay in pit lane for the remainder of this session and start from the back for the Japanese Grand Prix. Mercedes then makes his way towards Spoon Curve, making sure you don't run too wide here and get to that curve on the outside, but he's run a bit wide through the second part. And now as he goes onto the back straight, that wasn't ideal. We'll see. It could be improving nevertheless, because he is 1.7 seconds down on Simicic. Not really representative, but he does not improve in the middle sector either. Now, what about the final corners? He's gone a bit deep there. The run out the chicane is not going to be so good. He's sliding all over the place. We'll see what the time is for Stavros Mercedes. Is it going to be any better? I think it was, but only marginally. He seems to be off the pace. Hopefully his race pace will be a little bit more with the field.
Yeah, certainly on the limit around this Suzuka circuit. 30 seconds left. Final lap times will be coming in over the course of the next minute. Remember, they can finish their lap as long as they start it within the timed allowed. Here is Janis Brakshock, slow in the first sector, but still a decent time. Faster in that middle sector. Out to the final corner, 4/10 down on the pole position. Can he get himself up towards the front couple of rows? It'll be very important for him and the race so far. Jumps up to third place. That's more like it for the Arnage Brabham.
Yep. Still 2 tenths away, though. That's going to be the problem. Petr Birlak makes his way over the line now as well. We've got loads of drivers who are going to be on for a final lap here. The Ferrari drivers are going to be one of them. Yannick Bock another, but he's not improving in the first sector. Not a good start for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's not the way you want to start your lap. You want to be improving on your time. However, even if you're slower by 1,000th of a second, it will show as a white sector. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but definitely slower than what has been done before. Here's Sander Callas out to the final corner. I think he's actually been on pole position here in about 2018, 2019. 6th place for the ground effect. He also had a really good race this time last year at this very same track. Unfortunately, had a big collision coming to the final chicane that stops his charge for the victory that time around.
Yeah, of course it was a lot earlier in the season, by the way, the Japanese Grand Prix last season. It was round 3 back then. It's round 8 here this time around. Jake Dennehan is going to be next by the looks of it. Yannick Bock also improving, by the way, in the middle sector, and he'll be over the line in a couple of moments' time. But Jake Dennehan is improving massively. I think he'll be on the front row here. He could even be in first. Is Jone Simicic going to be denied right at the very end as Jake Dennehan makes his way out of the final turn now in towards the line? Jake Dennehan takes pole, a 27.0 and a spin across the line in celebration. Jake Dennehan's on pole by just 1/10 of a second, and he's stolen it away from Jone Simicic with the very last lap of qualifying.
Huge lap there for Jake Dennehan. That is a charge for the championship potentially. He's got a long way to go in terms of points, but he's certainly not letting Simicic get away with this. And the important factor is that behind Simicic, they've got Bock, Brakshock, Grankvist, Callas. They're not in the championship fight. We have to go all the way down to P11 for Dennis Jordan and P16 for Colin Spork, who was so dominant in those couple of races at Spa and Imola. How the turntables, as they say.
Yes, a very big change from maybe what we were expecting. Let's have a look at the starting grid for the Japanese Grand Prix here at Suzuka. Jake Dennehan with that late lap, getting ahead of Jone Simicic. Yannick Bock with a great qualifying performance as well to get third, by the way. And Janis Brakshock will line up fourth. Jan Frankvist for Superventuri puts his best performance in for a while. He's in the top 5 ahead of Sander Callas. Petr Birlak, 2015 champion, will be in at 7th alongside David Mocek, who's 6 places behind his teammate. This is very red, isn't it? Scuderia Ferrari are 9th and 11th. That's Siebel and Jordan behind one another. Panzer and Keersmakers are 10th and 12th behind one another as well. Martin Mergley and Matthew Williams will share row 7 with Zooks and reigning world champion Colin Spork down in 16th place. What a disaster for him. Mika Hakimi is 17th for Arnage, ahead of Cosmo Prosciutto, pro champion from last season. And then it's 2 Burst eSports Simplexity drivers on row 10, Michi Hoyer and Demian Skrovron. Mark Sluterer is nearly 20 places behind his teammate in 21st. George Salagianis is 22nd ahead of Kostas Van Vukas and Sergio Fletcher for Visceral Esports in their new livery. Valley Sports share row 13 with Danny Van Der Deep bringing up the rear for 27 drivers who line up to start the Japanese Grand Prix here this evening. Well, what a qualifying session that was. A late lap from Jake Dennehan to take his 3rd ever World Championship pole position away from Jone Simicic, And since he's 33 points behind Simicic on the way into today, if he wins, he's involved in the Brazilian Grand Prix title fight. The chances would be slim, of course, if Jone were to finish 2nd or indeed anywhere near him, but he would still be involved, and you just never know.
Yeah, it's going to be it's definitely going to be a difficult race with how it's going to play out. I see the strategists of these teams working overtime to try and get their driver up towards the front. As we said, the undercut is quite powerful around here, but if you undercut too early every pit stop, by the time you get to the last stint, you're going to be really struggling on your tyres. So you can't, have your cake and eat it all the time. So it's going to be really difficult to work out. And Denhan there, still on the soft tyres. Is he going to do an Adam Maguire from last race, or is that just a graphical thing? We'll have to wait and see. Often all the drivers will start the race on the hards.
What's the strategy from that point? I mean, we've seen the hards obviously a lot of the start, and sometimes there's a rogue one, as you mentioned, Adam Maguire. But what about the rest of the race? What are we looking at for strategy?
So it's between a 2 and a 3 stop. The tyres, I said, they do wear quite a bit, so it might be edging towards a 3 stop for some people. 2 stop is still possible. The issue is the hard compound tyres, you'd have to get them close to 20 laps. And yeah, especially on this first stint with a full tank of fuel, that's going to be quite tricky to do so. So we might see a few 3 stops. And if it does go the likes of a 3 stop, it's not just going to be hard medium or hard medium as such. It is going to be potentially, doubles, triple medium and such. The medium is a strong tyre around here. So especially if people are going for an undercut, look for them to use the mediums to get that double advantage.
You don't think the softs are going to be brought out at any point then? Because I know Jake Dennehan's on them at the moment, but what does warm-up mean, really? We very rarely see it in the races, to be honest. We haven't this season, anyway.
Well, looking at what Adam Maguire did in Monza, I think will tell you all that needs to be said. Same tyres, same compounds of tyres. Oh, no, the graphics has updated for Dennehan there. He is on the hards, as we
that makes more sense.
First mentioned. But, yeah, I don't think the softs, especially in the first stint, they'll just, with the higher fuel, they'll just die way too quickly. I guess in the final stint, you get down to like 10 laps, but then even then, a medium over a 10 lap will still probably be faster than the softs, because after 6 laps, the soft will be absolutely dead.
Well, let's see if anyone decides to take it on. Matthew Williams is on the hards at the moment for Royal Blue. Obviously, it doesn't mean they're going to be starting the race on these, but it likely does, because they're all on the hards. And as we said, it's a common starting tyre is the hards. We're just finishing up warm-up now for whatever this is worth, and you can just see the difference in pace as well. That from qualifying, it was absolutely scintillating to watch them through the first sector, especially in qualifying. But on high fuel, it's going to be a very, very different story. Those times were about 6 seconds slower than what we saw in qualifying from Jake Dennehan to take that pole position. You said a 26.9 might be possible.
Yep.
I would certainly believe you, to be honest, based on what we saw there. It felt like there was more time in that session. If that went out for another 10 minutes, then we could have seen some faster times.
Yeah, it's one of those things, though, getting it nailed. So when you're in practice, before the race, you have 2 weeks to practice, and you can do 100 laps. Of course, someone's going to do a 0.9, but when it comes to it, and you only have 3 laps in the 10 minutes, getting to the absolute limit is so difficult. Let's see how this one goes. I think, to be honest, in qualifying, it's one of those things as well. Some drivers, you saw like Simicic and Dennehan there, they could just turn it on and do that heater lap. Some people like Spork, I mean, we didn't really see his laps, but potentially bottled it a little bit, and unfortunately couldn't come down. So yeah, the pressure does come to drivers. Yeah,
it certainly does. Even at this level. What about Dennis Jordan as well? He's starting from the back end of the top 10 here. He's 18 points behind Simicic going into this race, and the odds were stacked against him anyway, since that Simicic, doesn't need to win a race now from here on in. He can win the title now with only 2 race wins in the season, which is quite a low number for him. But not from 9th place. Surely Dennis Jordan, he's got a lot of work to do in this race, and finishing ahead of Simicic is going to be a win here. It's just a case of how many points can he take, if any.
Yeah, I think the points gap after this race could swing very quickly with Jordan and Spork being. I mean, obviously Spork is realistically not going to win the championship unless he only has DNFs and stuff like that. But if it's a normal race, especially with Jordan, he's so close to that one race win away. If he finishes where he starts, and Yana gets first or second, then he loses the championship. So it's going to be a very tricky one for him to come back from that one. Needs to find his way forward. But Yeah, it's not going to be the calm race for some of these people that they would have wanted. It's going to be sweaty.
It's going to be a very difficult one for everyone. And very much looking forward to getting it underway. We're not too far away from the race here this evening, and hope you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a good one, an important one as well. 18 points, as I mentioned at the start of today, between 1 and 2. If Joni Simicic finishes in the top 5, then I believe Spork will be out no matter what happens here today in the championship. David Mrozek really needs Simicic to finish a long way down, but I don't think he'll be hoping for that since they are teammates. And Mrozek's main aim, I would say, is helping Simicic not only win the team's championship alongside him, but also win the driver's title as a Burst Esport driver. The formation lap gets underway. We're not going to read too much into the tyre graphic for the moment because it does take a while to update sometimes, and it could be wrong. So, but either way, we are expecting everyone to be on hards pretty much anyway, and that's not going to be too much of a talking point. We'll see if it's going to be 2 or 3 stop, but that's to come a little bit later. Kind of wondering now how the opening moments of this race is going to be. Is it going to be one of those days where Simicic just looks better than the rest, a league above the rest? Because for a moment in that qualifying session, I really thought he was going to take it by a couple of tenths of a second, which is quite a large margin in this championship around this circuit.
If Dennehan remained in 5th or 6th place, I would say so. But the fact that Dennehan is now on the front row of Simicic, race is now completely different, in my opinion, because we, as I mentioned after the qualifying, because you have that block of drivers just in behind with Bock, Brakshock, Grankvist, Callas. They're all not in the championship fights. They potentially going to be a little bit slower in the race because that's why they're down there in the championship and stuff like that. There's going to be that sort of 2 class system in that regard, and the likes of Simicic, he won't be worried about those guys behind. So it's definitely changed the way that they're going to attack this race.
Yes, it has. By the way, you finished 3rd here earlier, Cam, in the pro championship. You don't like to mention it, but you did get a podium. What's the chances of you being on the grid for the World Championship next or 2 weeks' time?
Well, I do try and but as you know, by the end of the season, a few teams need some reserve drivers, so I try and find my place. I'm not booked in for commentary. You got Ewan and Zach for the final race of Brazil, duly planned, of course. So we'll see if I can find a seat if anyone wants me, basically.
Well, that's a formal job advertisement, or what do you call it? I don't know. But anyway, he's offering his services for anyone who wants it. Clearly, I think there'll be a seat for you somewhere for the traditional final day appearance.
I'll speak to the team managers nicely.
Yes. Yeah, well, you can tell them what you can tell them what you want. You're the president. Anyway, let's go away from that subject. Brazil's a couple of weeks away. It's the Japanese Grand Prix, 53 laps around here this evening for the penultimate round of the Formula SimRacing VCO World Championship for 2023. A very important race coming up for everyone. Jake Dennehan needs to get back involved in the title fight. Dennis Jordan needs to stay involved and needs to gain some places from 11th back there for Ferrari. It's going to be a difficult race for everyone in this field. A long race, one where the smallest of errors can result in dramatic consequences around this circuit. Grass lines the track and mistakes are punished very, very severely around here. So let's see what happens over the course of 300 kilometres around here tonight. The penultimate round of the Formula SimRacing VCO World Championship for 2023 about to get underway. Jake Dennehan's 3rd pole position of his career, setting him up for possibly the dream start to this one. It's the Japanese Grand Prix, and we're ready to go racing here in the World Championship. We are underway, and Dennehan's got a very good start, although Simicic pulls alongside him. The three-time champion is on the inside in towards turn 1 and takes the lead straight away. Dennehan fights back on the outside through turn 1 and 2. What a fight between them, and the driver gets through. It's Jake Dennehan, the pole sitter, who retains his lead. A remarkable battle between the two through turns 1 and 2, and Jake Dennehan holds on to the lead through the first sector.
And Colin Spork's already made up 3 places, although scratch that, he's gone down to P14. So side-by-side battles in that midfield, of course, as they try and work their way through that very tricky first sector. It's all clean up towards the front, though, as they seem to have stayed in order. Side-by-side contact with Dennis Jordan. That might be his championship contact with loads of other cars coming in there. That's a horrible position to be in, and so many cars involved.
Oh, it's an absolute traffic jam. Dennis Jordan is down to 27th and may well be out of this World Championship. It's down the inside here for Colin Spork, who's lost his front wing as well. 2 of the big contenders with damage and contact in the opening lap of the Japanese Grand Prix. There's smoke as well from Danny van der Neet, I think. I hope it's just engine overheating off of the start here, because they were just sat on the grid for a little while, of course, and it seems to have gone away, so he might be all right, but Colin Spork certainly isn't. Dennis Jordan certainly isn't either. They're both scoring no points as of right now.
Oh, that is huge for this championship. It's now a 1v1 between Denahan and Simoncic. The issue for Denahan is he has to beat Simoncic. He's over 30 points back. There's 30 points, of course, left in Brazil, so he needs to get within that 30-point margin to even have a think about this championship. So he's got to have a strong race from here. And also, both of them, they've got no teammates around them or anything like that. It is going to be a straight battle for 53 laps today. And look at all these drivers coming in behind. All of these see an opportunity to get a race victory, with the likes of Jordan and Spork completely out of contention now. Points do go down to P20 though, so Spork and Jordan might be able to sneak some by the end of this race.
I mean, yeah, but if Simoncic is scoring even 25, then he's in trouble, isn't he? At the moment, 25, Dennis Jordan would need to be, what, 8th? And that's not good news, because he's going to struggle to get there, I would argue. Alex Siebel is still in the top 10. I don't really see what he can do from there. Jordan's still not out the pit lane either. Colin Spork at DNF, he may well have retired from the Japanese Grand Prix already. That is officially him relinquishing his title. He won in 2022, of course, with a dramatic final race win at the Brazilian Grand Prix. He took the closest title we've seen for years in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. But he will not be a 2-time champion, not in a row anyway. Colin Spork out of the race, out of the title fight.
I can't wait to, at some point, have a look at the side-by-side between Matt Williams and Dennis Jordan into Degner 1. Ewan, you said in the qualifying, Degner 1 was going to be an important corner in this race, but you probably didn't know what how strong those words are going to be when we got to that race. To be honest, I did a move like that in the pro race as well on first lap. It is possible, but it's so close, and you have to really trust each other side by side. So yeah, I'd like to see if there's a bit of squeezing between the others, but either way, side by side in a one-line corner, yeah, just cause that chain reaction, multiple drivers involved, and unfortunately, Spork was one of them as well.
Yeah, we'll get to start replays in a couple of moments' time, but we've completed 2 laps here of the Japanese Grand Prix. Jake Denahan leads the way ahead of Jenny Simoncic, Yannick Bott, Jens Braxton and Jan Grankvist rounding out the top 5. Have we ever had 5 people with names beginning with J at the front? I don't know. That's a very low probability of thing in the world, but there you go. That's a useless fact. Anyway, that's your top 5. Alexander Callis is just outside of it. Petr Burlek, Mrocek, Siebel, Williams, your top 10. At the moment, pretty much everyone, as you predicted on hards, cam, but Michi Hoyer doing something different there in the mid-pack.
And it's actually worked well for him. He's made up a few places there already. The issue for him is that they are, as we mentioned, they're going to wear quite a bit faster than those hard compound tyres. But if he can stay in the train, he might be able to extend that stint in some way, or what he's probably going to try and do is get some sort of undercut, especially if this goes towards a 3-stop race. That might help him out. But if it goes towards a 2-stop race, he really needs to stretch those mediums already in this first stint. So it's a bit of a gamble with how things work out, but we know he likes the alternate strategy. He played that in Monza a few weeks ago, and he actually led the race for a little bit. Unfortunately, ends up with some contact with Spork, but definitely, it's worth trying something different when all 20 other cars are on the hards.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes when you do something like that and you're on your own, you do feel like you've certainly done the wrong thing. But it's not on this occasion, I wouldn't say. Michi Hoyer doesn't often get too caught up in that, I wouldn't say. DRS, by the way, enabled at the moment, and Yannick Simoncic didn't get it on the front straight there.
Yes, 7/10 of a second. You see on the bottom right corner of your screen, you see the little green line out of the final chicane. So it's a very tricky place, actually, because if you wheel spin out of the chicane, you might just drop outside of the 7/10. And then look how short the green zone is. Now all the cars are gone, and bottom right corner of your screen. It's such a short DRS zone around here. It really is just that final burst of speed to try and overtake. You do have to do the work yourself. You've got to get on the power nicely. You've got to use a bit of push to pass. It is literally just an overtaking aid, as it's sort of designed to do, I guess.
Yeah, Matsuda down in 20th place. That's 1 place gained for the virtual drivers by TX3 driver so far. He's on the back of Danny van der Neat back in the mid-pack. It's pretty much one long line, really, from Jake Dennehan right the way down to Sluter in 20th place. Further back from that, we've got some separation, probably and largely because of the opening lap incidents, although remarkably, only Spork and Jordan came in. I mean, I thought that Mora would have to come in than that, but clearly they were the only ones to lose bodywork. And they've both come in. Spork out the race. Jordan more than a minute back already, but somewhat surprised everybody, or well, some of them made it through that second Degner with about 15 cars. It felt like just parked up on lap 1.
Yeah, I guess there's going to be some cars rolling around with damage. The issue is, as you see with Dennis Jordan, the amount of time for damage repair. Look how far you drop off. So if you can actually, if you have only a little bit of damage repair, you might be able to make that work. As I think that was Hakimi going side by side with Mergely in towards turn 1. They didn't make it. Also, Schluter around the outside. That's going to be a Van Vukas. Nice move there. Definitely possible into turn 1. Bit risky though, with the outside curb, but yeah, definitely had that nicely before the first apex.
Well, 5/10 is the gap now between Dennehan and Simicic. It's almost as if Simicic sort of let the DRS go there for a lap so that he could focus on dropping Bock from his DRS, and now he can focus on the race leader. Don't know if that's exactly what's at play, but it has worked out like that for the moment. He gets very close on the way in towards the hairpin. See, management going to be important of your electrical energy, tyres, and just pacing yourself throughout this race, basically. It's a long way around here, 53 laps. One of the slightly shorter, actually, of the Grand Prix. It's not quite as short as Monza, which is very short, but it's one of the shorter ones. And even so, a very high intensity hour and a bit for Jake Dennehan and everyone else behind. It's, as I say, one long line from him, basically all the way down to Sluter in 20th place, or 19th now as he is. Someone's dropped down from that position. But lap 5 is now complete. Dennehan still leading, and the encouraging thing for him is that it doesn't feel like Simicic is sort of just there and obviously holding back. He is still having to push to keep up with Dennehan right now. They seem fairly evenly matched early on.
Yeah, do you remember this it was in Imola and maybe in Spa as well, where we saw basically the front pack just trying to pull away, trying to stretch out the field and lose as many people off the back of the leading train as possible. Often when we see Simicic leading, he sort of has the opposite idea, and it sort of goes slow in that first stint, hold everyone up, and then at some point bolt. But what we've seen with Dennehan and Spork over those races in Spa and Imola was, as I said, the opposite, where you try and pull away. But the issue for them is they do have basically everyone keeping up with them. There's only really some small gaps starting to work out when we get a little bit towards Burlak and Siebel, etc., maybe just off the back. So, yeah, it's definitely not opening up as much as they would have wanted. The issue for them is they've got to find a pit delta at some point, which is around 21-22 seconds.
Right now is going to drop you to about 25th, so that's not ideal at all. Demian Skrovron with a nice run off at the hairpin here. He's just behind Zoltzuks for the ground effect team. Both of their cars inside the top 15 as things stand. Sander Callas running well around here for the second year in a row in what seems to be a bizarre coincidence, or maybe not a coincidence at all, maybe just like Suzuka, but he's running well again and well on the cards for a top 5 here this evening. Zoltzuks is a bit further away than that. Skrovron just behind, trying to keep up with his teammate Michi Hoyer, although they are on different strategies after all. Skrovron nowhere near close enough for a move down into the final chicane. It certainly seemed in the past couple of years like turn 1 is the better overtaking opportunity.
Yeah, turn 1 I think is the best because the straights are back-to-back from the hairpin. You have 3 straights. It doesn't really make sense to overtake on the first one because then you'll just get overtaken on the second one. So you have to wait to the third one, which of course is turn 1, and that, of course, that's where the DRS is as well. One thing to note though is also at this time of the race, same as it is always in the first 10 laps of every race. Everyone is on the same tyres, the same fuel, the same sort of strategy at this moment. Once we get the first pit stops, once we get undercuts, once we get people doing different things, that's when, of course, you then see the ability to overtake. Because right now, you've got the drivers who are doing the same lap times on the same tyres, etc. So obviously, realistically, there's not going to be any overtakes. But later on, when we see people on the hards versus the mediums, old versus new tyres, that's when you really have that extra second or so pace advantage a lap where you can overtake.
In case you're wondering, by the way, stepping into the World Championship for 2023 for the first time, it's 0.7 of a second you need to be within to get DRS, and that's why not everyone at the front has got it, and even the small gaps are creating DRS gaps right now. Zoltzux is closing on Prosciutto here. Tried to go through into Spoon maybe, but there's not enough space there, not a lot of it anyway. And so he has to stay behind, and in fact, in doing that, he's actually let Squadron close in massively. Now the burst driver might have an opportunity to go into 15th place. Are they going to go side by side through 130 yard? No. Sux just used, I think, a bit of energy there just to get ahead on the way in towards 130 yard. Squadron lifting off slightly on the way in towards the Casio Triangle, the final chicane on the lap. And there's going to be all sorts going on down here and towards turn one. Let's see what the exit's like for all of them. Zook goes a little bit wide to keep the car straighter and keep the car from wheel spinning, but it's allowed Squadron to take a tighter line and catch up. There's a late move. Squadron goes to the inside. Prosciutto and Hakimi go side by side up in front as well. But Squadron is through. What about Hakimi or Prosciutto on Hakimi? That was a massive wiggle. And Mika Hakimi loses the place to Cosmo Prosciutto.
I thought he was just spinning straight into Royal Blue Driver, but the Malaysian managed to get control of that car and gets into that position. Might just be a little bit of warping there in his car, but it seems to be okay for now. And also, yeah, nice move from Squadron to get back. Dukes obviously used quite a bit of push to pass coming out of the hairpin, out towards Spoon to get that past, get past the burst. But as I said, you overtake on the first straight, and then look what happens. You just get overtaken again into turn one. So that is why sometimes you go use a little bit of racecraft and actually not overtake. Even though you have the opportunity to, you actually have to wait until the better opportunity to do so. But look at this train that's happening. Prosciutto, I think this is the highest he's ever legitimately ran as well, in 13th place. Up the inside, was that potentially going to be a bit of a move side by side? But actually, I think Hakimi just backed out of that one. But definitely getting close as a train forms. Michi Hoyer has pulled away from them.
Yep, he has. In fact, the top 10 now are really a group, and then it's Mergley and Hoyer who are fighting for 11th, and then the rest behind, which we were just watching. End of lap 8 then, and it's no change at the front of the field. The top 10 remains the same as it was created on lap 1. And I wonder whether that's, once again, we ask this question all the time, of course, but I always wonder whether it's a question of they can't overtake or they won't overtake just for the moment, because there's a lot of tactics going on here, not only in terms of strategy and working out mediums, hards, what do I put on when, and what lap do I come in, but also when do you make your moves, where do you make your moves, and all of that kind of strategy as Mika Hakimi tries to regain that 13th place unsuccessfully on this time. Yeah, well, sort of train is opening up, or it's forming, is really getting quite awkward. Actually, they're so slow. I say so slow. It's just a couple of tenths a lap, but it's enough just to bunch all of these drivers up behind. And look at Schluter getting so close to Jurgs. Don't want to go side by side into Degner 1. Also, yeah, he has. He's got the dirty air. He's gone onto the grass. He's managed to collect it and save it, but he's now got the Valley eSports of Valeriano to just slide up past before the hairpin. Well, that could have been a lot worse, I suppose, but even so, it was quite bad. Valeriano gets through into 17th place. Danny van der Neek goes very wide as well, just behind, almost distracted. And Van Fucus will try and go through in towards Spoon, although no, van der Neek uses a bit of energy there to stay in front on the way towards Spoon Curve. It's very easily done, and to be honest, I'm surprised that's the first time we've seen someone fall afoul of it since lap 1. I wouldn't imagine it'll be the last. Yeah, the difference is in qualifying, you're trying to keep it in 7th gear, just a little dab of the brakes to go in, stay on the throttle sort of thing, whereas in the race, it is actually a braking zone as such. You go down to 6th, you actually brake for the corner, so you're just coming in with a bit less risk as such. All side by side into the chicane, and there goes Schluter up the inside of Valeriano to take that place back. Huge slide in the exit with Van der Neek in the background, so you can swap around the positions. Definitely needed. Oh, up the inside there's that. Who's that a little bit further up? Hoyer and Mergley fighting for 11th place. Hoyer's really making some moves on those medium tyres. Side by side in towards turn 1. Van der Neek up the inside. Contact between the two. Further contact in the background with his sister teammate. And unfortunately, that is what happened when you got the inside of turn 1 sometimes. Oh dear, oh dear. Danny van der Neek goes around. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly to your point, that's exactly what could have happened on lap 1 between Dennehan and Simicic. They went side by side so well, and Dennehan went round the outside really well through the opening couple of corners of this race. But that's what so easily can happen. And so you've got to take your hat off to those who have managed it successfully so far. And the leading two certainly did back on lap number 1. 10 laps of yellow passed though, and they've yet to battle again. Yellow flag, I don't know.
Valeriano DNF. Valeriano DNF. He's had some sort of issue. I saw a car off at Degner 2. I wonder if he's got involved there. So another DNF to add to the list, unfortunately. Spork and Keersmakers already DNF'd in this race. It certainly is a tricky track. It's quite narrow. It's got the tricky curbs. It's got the grass right next to the white lines. We don't often see that on these modern tracks. And certainly if it was made again, it would be a lot wider in certain sections. Very tricky track.
It would, yeah, this wouldn't exist today, of course. But that's why we like it. Historic racetrack. Very iconic one as well on the Formula 1 calendar. It used to be, by the way, I'm sure you remember this, Cam, and I do to a degree, used to be championship finale for Formula 1 all the time. Many title deciders have been played out here, many iconic ones indeed, before we were both born. I won't go there. But no, it used to be the finale that was, year on year. Then it was Brazil, and now it's unfortunately Abu Dhabi. But no, it used to be the title decider, and many dramatic title moments have been played out at this venue, and we've seen another one today on lap 1.
Yeah, what's funny though is now because it's generally 2, 3, 4, 5 races before the end of the season now, and also in sim racing, often championships are actually decided now at Suzuka. And we might see it again tonight, actually, with Simicic, if he can hold on with his lead over Jordan, who's obviously still leading, still running in the race so far. Yeah, certainly an interesting track, and it's because it's got that tricky nature. It's got that fast nature as well. It's sort of high intensity, high stakes, high risk, high reward, all those sorts of tracks that it really produces these crazy races where you have to take risks, just like we saw Van den Eet there. The turn 1 overtake here is not a nice hairpin or a nice, something like that, like we see at, say, Bahrain. It's a fast flowing corner. You have to send it down the inside and have hope that you leave each other enough space. Yeah,
yes, certainly. Mika Hakimi is under a lot of pressure again here. He seems to be going just backwards in this race and not looking forward. Zooks goes round the outside the first spot to get the inside at the second. There's slight contact. Hakimi goes off onto the curb and the grass, and Schluter will go through as well. Hakimi will be a little bit annoyed about that, but he's unfortunately been pushed wide. There is a stop for Michi Hoyer. That's expected, to be fair, although fairly early after that first stint on the mediums. Surely it will be a 3-stop for him.
Yeah, I would. Well, I actually don't know. don't know what he's doing, but you can, in theory, 2-stop from there. But that is long, hard stint, so it might be towards a 3-stop. We'll have to see also what everyone else does. It is, sort of on the bubble of that. It depends on how the trains go, depending where the pit stop gaps are, that sort of thing. That's what you've got to keep on top of over the course of the race with your strategy. Mitchell trying something different. He definitely worked in those first stints. There's all more drivers off Zooks there, going wide in Degner 1.
As of right now, by the way, you mentioned that Jordan would be out the championship fight, Camp, and that is true, but Dennehan would remain in the fight. He'd be 28 points behind Simicic going into the final race, which would mean Simicic would only have to finish 18th at Brazil to secure the title. So it's very much in his hands, a 4th world title, possibly going the way of Ewan Simicic, but there's still a long way to go here, of course, and there are plenty of drivers within 5 seconds of him willing to take places here.
And that is a big one for Dennehan, because even if it is 28 points, remember there's 30 for a win, so it's pretty difficult. But just keeping it alive, you never know what's going to happen. Remember back to 2020, and Simicic had that disconnect from Zandvoort that gave Burlak at the time a very, very healthy margin. But unfortunately, Burlak then had a DNF at this race, a race later. So certainly things can happen as we have a bit of a battle there. Brakshock and Box swap around for P3.
Yep, so change there. The first change inside the top 10 since lap 1. Jonas Brakshock makes his way up to 3rd place, and that's a nice change, I think, for Brakshock, really. Too often in this season, we've seen him take pole position or a good qualifying result, and then see him clinging on with race pace and losing places throughout the day. But this shows him moving forward a little bit more in the Arnage car, and so far it's going well for him. Podium place as of right now, and by the way, so far this season, 2 pole positions to his name, and 5 overall in the World Championship. But yeah, third in this race as of right now, and maybe he can catch up to the two leaders as well, who are getting a bit closer. 3 tenths separating them right now.
And who is going to bolt and make the first pit stop? Of course, if we're looking at a 3-stop strategy, that's 4 stints, you divide it by 4, and you get 13.25, and it is now lap 13. So this is within the region, if you're going for undercuts and that sort of stuff, that you want to be, just trying to at least think about it and see what is going to happen. As we said, the pit stop window is an important one, and for the leaders, 22 seconds, you're right in the train around Zalagianis and Van Vukas, so they'll probably stay out for now. But certainly we're starting to see a little bit of a breakaway with those top 3. Bot can't keep up.
And outside line here for Fletcher as he tries to make his way through on Mika Hakimi. It's a big slide and he is through. Hakimi continues to be overtaken here, unfortunately. He can't seem to stop going backwards. Fletcher now the latest to make his way through in the Visceral car, the new livery. Hakimi tucks up behind. Will use the DRS finally at the end of the straight, but not quite get there in time. Oh, he'll look to the inside. Doesn't quite make it. And unfortunately, it's just a case of race pace not being as strong as qualifying pace at the moment for Mika Hakimi, because he is only being overtaken in the early point of this race. And it's an potential important race for Fletcher as well. I know he's looking for a world championship, can't get words out, but you know what I mean, a WC seat for next season, and he's got the opportunity to reserve for Visceral, who are struggling for drivers a little bit after Mergely left them for R8G. So definitely opportunity to show what he's made of and try and get up inside the points, which he is at the moment in that P16, beating some full-time drivers like Panzar and Van Vukas, and of course Mazidis as well. So definitely a good opportunity for him. Yeah, certainly. So lap 14, Petr Birlek just ahead of Sander Kallas now. That's another change inside the top 10. You can tell we're getting towards the end of a stint here because things are starting to change. Kallas quite late on the brakes there in towards the final chicane, but no move. And we go past lap 14 with no pit stop. Surely we won't be too far away from having the pit stops. The top 3, though, getting away from the rest. Jan Vrankvist goes down the inside of Yannick Bock. And so that's a change for 4th as well. Vrankvist moves up again. But the front 3 starting to get away from the rest. I wonder if Dennehan's turning the pace on a little bit, or whether the others are starting to struggle. I mean, this is starting to get to the region, especially with the full tank of fuel, where the hard tyres will start to drop off a little bit. And I think that's why we're starting to see the likes of Bock, dropping down. Maybe some other drivers will start to get to that point where you just can't keep the pace. And it's not necessarily that the potential pace isn't there anymore. It's that the tyres get sort of right on the limit, and you can very easily start sliding. And when you obviously slide, you can't get on the power and things like that. You really have to keep it in this really tight window when the tyres start wearing, and that's how you. And it's more of the consistency factor rather than the peak pace. If you do a nice clean lap, you'll still be able to do the same pace, but yeah, it's harder to do those laps. So Alex Siebel stays in 8th position. As I said earlier, don't see what he can do to help his teammate at the moment. Jordan needs to finish in that 8th position to keep the title fight alive, and even then he would need to win the last race of the season. And so would Dennehan, so that's obviously not going to work. And they're a long way from that situation, the both of them. So difficult really to know. I think Siebel was just going to kind of run his own race here. And of course, think about the team's championship. After all, they are already 17 points ahead of Alpine, who would be in and around them as of right now, with Birlek having a couple of points over Siebel. Alpine would just cut that advantage down to 15. But with this round also, Burst would certainly get away in the team's championship by quite some distance now, and I think be close to securing it with 1 round to go. Yeah, definitely. Constructors' Championship is on the lookout for some drivers. Almost contact side by side down the front straight. Zalagianis, DRS gets past Hakimi there. Fletcher has gone off up the road, such as how much you slow down when you start battling. Bit of a wiggle there side by side as Hakimi just has to back out of that one. Otherwise, we'll see a crash there in turns 3 and 4. Certainly some eagerness from drivers to make some moves just before the pit stop window, but we're actually looking pretty good for some nice battles up towards the front. The top 10 still within about 7 seconds of each other. It's just behind them where it's starting to spread out. Yeah, really remarkable starts to this race for the front guys. as I say, top 10 covered by 7 seconds. Then there is 7 seconds to Martin Mugli in 11th, which says all you need to know about the spread of the field at the moment. And even if you look deeper than that, to be fair, the top 3 are covered by a second. And then there's a further second and a half back to Jan Vrankvist at the moment. We're approaching 1/4 distance of this race now. In fact, I think we passed it here today. And the first pit stop surely will be soon, but still no takers. As you mentioned, a quarter distance would be 13 and a bit, so let's call it 14 if you like, because we're on the harder compound. They're going way past that at the moment. Maybe they're worrying a little bit about where they're going to come out, because right now it would be in a lot of traffic.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the things. If you're doing the extra stop to the three stop strategy, yeah, definitely got to be looking out, because you need to be making advantage of those new tyres. That first 2 or 3 laps is so crucial. I mean, that's, not to say that there's still not been a 3 stop from this point, but certainly it's something to think about, because your biggest gain is when you have those absolutely fresh tyres. There's Mugli coming out the pit lane, and Michi Hoyer gets past, of course, doing a bit of an undercut, pitting about 5 laps ago already, after doing the mediums in that first stint. So yeah, this is where they're going to be at some point. Hoyer probably will catch up to that train ahead.
Well, it might not be a bad call for Hoyer, really, because if you think about it, he's going to undercut every single stop. That's going to be 3 times over the course of this race. He's already up to what is going to be 11th now. And then we've seen it's relatively difficult to overtake as well, so he might be able to hold on to track position. It might not be such a bad strategy at all, even if he did use his mediums in the most traffic-filled part of his race.
Yes, again, we'll have to see if he goes back to mediums at some point. But he definitely did gain, though, from that stint. He gained, it was about 5 places, and he got himself way ahead of that mid-pack train that we're seeing. So I do think a potential top 10 is on the cards of how it's working out. Still a long way to go, of course, just lap 18 of 53 around here. Here's your battle up towards the front. We've got Grankvist actually trying to bridge that gap and come on the back of Brakshock, as Bock has really dropped down. But actually, that's because he's in the pit lane along with David Mrocek. But either way, Bock was dropping off a little bit. Burlak got past him, maybe Callas as well. So definitely tyre wear being a big factor around here, as we expected.
Surely that's going to set off a bit of a chain reaction now, to be honest, with those two in already. Schulter's looking down the inside of Prosciutto as well, and can't get that done into turn 1. That's now the battle for 10th place as the pit stops happen. Where are they going to come out? Mrocek and Bock. Bock is in a nice bit of clean air. Mrocek is not. That's the opposite of clean air. That is Robin Panzar is what that is. I know they used to be teammates. Don't know if they still are, actually, Cam.
No, Robin went to Race Clutch at the beginning of this year.
I thought it was just a loan, but apparently no. So that's going to be a problem for Rodger, really, and that might play on the minds a little bit of those others who are looking to stop soon.
Yep, this is exactly why the lead people would be staying out, because they don't want to get involved. Is that car with no front wing up ahead? Or rear wing, I should say, up ahead, as Mrocek dives up the inside? Yes, it is. One of the burst cars has got no wings in Formula 4 running around here.
It's Damian Scrovron. He's not got an engine cover either, has he? Dear me. Oh, Damian Scrovron has made a real mess of this. He's made a mess of the car, I'm afraid. There is an engine cover, sorry, but there's no rear wing or front wing. He finally pulls to the side now and says, that's enough for me, thank you. And he's out the race, I think. But what a disaster that is for Damian Scrovron, I would imagine, given where that car's placed. It was at Degnes 2.
Yeah, wow, what a season he's having. It's not gone the way that he would have wanted. For sure, he got some podiums last year, almost won a race in Monza, but it wasn't for a drive-through penalty. But this year, really struggled to get a grips with this car. And when you're a bit further down, sometimes you have to take some risks and that sort of stuff. And he's been involved in a lot of accidents with that. Seaball into the pit lane. Prosciutto, Schluter, Zaligianis all in the pit lane. There's Mrocek on the exit with Seaball. Could Mrocek do the undercut? Yes, I think he has into turn 1, despite being held up a little bit with the traffic. Mrocek has got the Ferrari driver, just showing you how powerful it is. Even with the traffic, you can still make a position.
Well, I'm surprised the others haven't come in now, because Bock is in a lot of clean air, and surely, judging by that, the undercut that Mrocek has just got, surely the alarm bells have got to be going off out front now that Yannick Bock may well be leading this race in a lap's time.
Yeah, potentially. Of course, the longer they stay out, though, the more advantage they will have. but potentially you're going to be losing multiple positions. So this is certainly a big factor here, and we are seeing some stretching of the field at the front here, and I wonder if they're starting to push before a pit stop. Hasn't been any sort of battles though, so Denahan definitely has the speed to hold off Simoncic.
Well, are they even 3-stopping? That's another question. Is it going to be a 2-stop for these guys at the front just to minimise their time in traffic, which could be a problem throughout today's race? Denahan and Simoncic are now in, so 19 laps complete, and they're in. Oh, Denahan, wow! What a slide that was, and I hope he got it slowed down in time because that was very close. And he does need to win here, of course, as we mentioned, so that was very close to Jake Denahan finding himself in the wall entirely. Now, what can Yannick Bock do? The German makes his way out the final corner now and should take over the net race lead. Jan Frankquist stays ahead, but what about Yannick Bock? He's going to be close here. Jake Denahan makes his way out the pit lane. He's going to be ahead, but Jone Simoncic won't be. So Bock moves into second, but Jake Denahan will hold on to the net race lead.
What an undercut. Look how many seconds. Remember, Bock was so far behind this pack. He dropped way back, and now he's up to second place. So that undercut is massive, absolutely powerful, and it's worked out great for him. How is this one? How's this one going to work out? Although I am being told that he might have a drive-through penalty, so potentially sped in the pit lane for Bock. We'll have to see if and when he comes to serve that.
That would be exceptionally unfortunate for Yannick Bock. He would have thrown a real spanner into the works for this race. Braxok still attempting to do that as well. He followed the other two in, Denahan and Simoncic, and Jan Frankquist is continuing on. I wonder whether Frankquist, with nothing to lose here, is just going to say, well, if you're not going to do it, then I will. Let's try the 2-stop strategy here. And to be fair, we've not really got any more answers because everyone's on the hards again now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you go 2020, you've only got 13 laps left, so it is definitely looking potentially like some 2-stops today. Side by side, Mergley up the inside of Spoon Corner, giving the space on the outside for Mika Hakimi, and much more grip up the inside there. The R8G driver goes. He's been very fast since moving to that outfit. Let's see what he can do today. Up the inside is Simoncic, around the outside now for Yannick Bock. It's going to have to be, but Bock stays out. No big does come in, so he did have the drive-through penalty, as we're expecting, I would assume, as I said, for speeding in the pit lane at that pit stop.
It does this give the chance, though, for Jake Denahan to get away entirely. There's going to be DRS for Simoncic, of course, because he was behind Bock, but that gap is 1.8 seconds. Jan Frankquist is going to come out miles down, indeed in 9th place. The only one inside the top 10 he's ahead of from before is Yannick Bock, and that's only because of the drive-through penalty that the Virtual Drivers by TX3 competitor has had to take. So Denahan now lead by 1.6, 1.5. It's coming down, and you just wonder whether Simoncic is going to get this gap down again in a lap or two, because he does that quite regularly as Van Vukas makes his way down the inside of one of the valet cars, Mercedes, and makes his way into 21st behind Robin Panzar. But the gap up front is just over a second. Denahan is seeing that gap crumble, really. I'm not sure how much energy Simoncic is using to close it, though.
And I just realised Mocek's jumped up to 4th place. I mean, he was down in like 9th position at one point, and he's really, with that undercut as well, has really jumped up a couple of places, including Seaboard. But he also got Burlack. I think he might be behind Callas as well at the that first stint. So really working out nicely for the Burst Esports next to, of course, his teammate Jone Simoncic. They're going for the championship. So that is certainly an important factor for them to have two cars up towards the front. Here's their sister team, I know, for the Burst Esports Simplexity. So different outfit. Hoyer's teammate is Scovron in the championship, getting the run up towards 130R. Sketchy moves up the inside, but he's easily passed actually before the apex.
Could be another bit of side-by-side towards the end, though. And Hakimi looks down the inside again of Hoyer. That was close. Couldn't quite do it there. I'm not sure whether Hakimi, by the way, just hasn't pitted yet or whether he got a big undercut. But he seems to be ahead of a lot of people who overtook him only a few laps ago. And Yannick Bock was not one of them, but he will overtake now anyway into 11th place. So Yannick Bock through once again. Hearing come that Martin Mergley has had a drive-through penalty as well for R8G. So that's a bit of a disaster. Yeah, he's just served it, 19th place. That's ruined what would have been a top 10 for him, or could have been.
Yeah, bit of a shame. Rh8, actually, that's one of the drivers who's missing, isn't it? It's Adam Maguire, his teammate.
He's in YouTube chat, that's why.
Yeah, he's not right. I know he was a bit busy. I was told he was a bit busy this week, and it was sort of 50-50 if he was going to be coming to the race or not. But in the end, not here, which is a shame because that Rh8 team, they've been fast all season. At the early points of the season, they had Liam DeVal, Adam Maguire in there, and they were really challenging in the first opening races of the season. But unfortunately, it didn't continue. They had a double DNF in Silverstone. They had a couple of races off, and now they are back with Mergley in the second seat.
Yeah, so that's good for them to be back on the grid. But unfortunately, no Liam DeVal. Once again, I'm sure he'll be back for the start of next season. He often is back and often starts very well in seasons. He has done in the last few anyway. Now Yeni Simoncic is getting very close to Jake Dennehan. Is he just going to close this gap and then punch straight through? Well, not this lap. It's another lap led for Jake Dennehan. He's taken the lead in nearly all of them now. So we've got 31 to go, including the one that we're on at the moment. I think even with the fact that these guys came in on lap 19, they should be able to do a two-stop here. I think that's going to be the norm for the guys inside the top 10, mainly because they didn't want to end up in the traffic. But if they do another 19-lap stint, there'll only be 15 left of the race. Yeah, looking good for the two stops, I would say. Yannick Bock getting past Michi Hoyer. Of course, Michi Hoyer pitting now 11 laps ago, and he's now at that point in the stint where obviously he undercut initially. Oh, there's a big crash in the background. Who went off there? Trying to see if anyone's dropping down the way. It's one of the ground effect cars is Zolt Jukes. He's had a massive accident there coming through sort of turn 5-6 region of the track, and that's going to be a difficult one to get back from the pit lane. Almost a full lap. And he's not going to. That'll be the answer. That'll be it for Zolt Jukes, unfortunately. He retires from the race and becomes another retirement. I think that's 4 now in this race. Obviously, Spork on that one. We had Lawrence Kiersmakers in the first 10 laps as well. More recently than that, Demian Scrobron, after losing his front and rear wing. Don't remember Valeriano as the side-by-side battle for the league just continues on. And, of course, we've just seen Zooks get a DNF here this evening. Now then, leading battles on here. Simoncic has closed the gap and he wants to continue with the pace that he knows he has. Does he believe he can get rid of Dennehan and put him in the rearview mirror? He's going to go for it now in turn 1, inside line. This is where Dennehan held on to the lead last time. That was so close. Yone Simoncic very nearly into the side of Dennehan, and they both survive. Dennehan continues to lead. Oh my God, I thought that was going to be Danny Van Den Eek moment like we saw a few laps ago, but Simoncic and Dennehan just about giving each other enough space, but that was close. And it's interesting though, Dennehan clearly wants to keep out the front. He could sit in behind, do a bit of saving like we see sometimes, but no, he wants that track position. He knows how crucial that is, and as you see, it's difficult to overtake around here. Simoncic had to absolutely send it. Oh, and his teammate. No, he's done here. Both Burst Simplexity cars are out of the race now with big damage. He's hit the pit wall, hasn't he, Michi Hoyer? He's done a very near Cam Rodger. Apparently, I heard that he nearly hit the pit wall. I don't know if that's true or not. The issue is I nearly did, and maybe Michi actually did, which is not gone well. Rarely, actually, in rFactor 2, you rarely see a car like that with one of the front wheels gone. It's very difficult to take those off, so that must be a big hit. Well, yeah, I suppose it would be a head-on collision at over 100 miles an hour, so it probably was. And unfortunate for Michi Hoyer, that's the Simplexity Burst team, both out of the race. They're way down in 8th in the team standings, by the way, long way down on where you'd expect to see them. And they may well be overtaken by 2 or 3 teams at the end of today, as a result of how close it is back there. Alex Siebel is continuing to gain places here. He's up to 5th now for Scuderia Ferrari eSports team. It's on the back of David Mrozek. Jonas Braxok is still 3rd. Seems that the top 2 are a league above the rest a little bit here. I did think for a moment in the first stint that Braxok and maybe even Bott could have stayed with the 2 leaders, but I think they are probably too good for the rest, as the first 25 laps have shown. Yeah, maybe the top 2 are separated for the win, but look at this 3-way train for the final place on the podium as well. Braxok has it at the moment. He's finished on the podium a few times before. So is Mrozek in that 4th place. But we had championship contender last year. Alex Siebel hasn't had the best season so far, but he's in that 5th place, and he would love to finish the season with a podium here at the penultimate race of the season. Here's Mergley in the pit lane once again. So that's another pit stop because he had one, got a penalty. Served the penalty for the 2nd time for the pit lane, and now that's the 3rd time for the rH driver. Was that a drive-through as well? Or did he stop
Oh
there?
no, I hope not.
I didn't see him stop, but maybe we didn't see his whole transit through the lane. So
Their pit box, I believe, is like the very first one.
okay, well it's possible.
Yeah.
I just didn't see it then, but yeah, he certainly wasn't stopped when I was watching there. Anyway, let's hope that. That's just a tyre change. Certainly be a 3-stop for him then if he's pitting now. As Jurek Simicic heads to the outside, this time with a bit more conviction. Jake Dennehan holds him off, but there's a shoulder barge from Simicic as he tries to go through. Now they're going to be side by side on the exit. Dennehan may have got the DRS there, though. I think he was just behind at the line. It's a drag race down the front straight at Suzuka, and he's back in front again. He did have the DRS, and Dennehan leads again. Simicic's move at the final chicane doesn't pay off. He was more aggressive, it still didn't work.
I would love to see the throttle traces there, because I almost thought at one point that Simicic was slightly backing out of it on the outside. Maybe it's just not using the push to pass, because obviously, as you say, battling for who gets the DRS, and Dennehan comes out on top again. He is... the improvement he's made over the last couple of years is incredible, to just the amount of racecraft he has in his game as Zalagianis gets past Van den Eek there for 13th place. That's a solid position actually for Zalagianis in the World Championship, alongside Prosciutto and Van den Eek, who are, well, obviously Prosciutto was pro champion last year, but Zalagianis and Van den Eek also pro drivers.
Yes. Just on that with Jake Dennehan as well, I mean, he's shown a lot of development to even win a race in the World Championship this season. Hasn't been outside the top 10 all season long either. Of course, same goes for Jurek Simicic and Dennis Jordan actually as well. But even so, I mean, it's a remarkable record now for Dennehan to continue to hold that. He'd never been inside the top 10 in the World Championship previous to this season. Then he went on to win that opening race of the season, and we just wondered what he might be able to do over the course of 2023. Well, it seems that he can go maybe all the way with Jurek Simicic here. He's 33 points behind going into today. As it stands right now, he will be 28 behind, pushing it to a final race. I mean, I don't know if the championship's figuring fully in his mind. I don't think that's the first thing on his mind. I think he'll just want a second race win of the season.
Oh yeah, that's all he's thinking about. I mean, we saw it in Spa as well. I mean, he was really trying to get Spork, but that time was those couple of races in Imola and Spa where Spork was just on another level. But Dennehan, here as well. I mean, he's going to want to stay ahead, because also staying ahead keeps him inside that championship fight. As much as he'll be far away, he's still mathematically possible to be champion. And at the end of the day, that's all you're hoping for coming into the final race of the season. Yeah,
he would need to win, and Simicic would need to finish 19th or lower. 19th, they'd be tied, and Dennehan would win with more race wins, and 20th, he'd win by a point. And then obviously 2 points if he doesn't score at all. But, I mean, they're long shots at that point. Simicic has failed to... I mean, when was the last time he failed to finish at all? Simicic, I'll find out.
Zandvoort. I'm pretty sure Zandvoort 2020 was his only DNF, potentially, as well. That's
a long time ago. The world was a different place back then. You might be right, to be fair. A DNF, and as far as I can see, that is it. Let's have a look. Side by side for the race lead, very nearly. Dennehan defends again. I think Simicic has enjoyed a bit more success in the final chicane, to be honest, but the run towards turn 1 seems to be the better opportunity generally. Will there be a chance on this occasion? Dennehan defends. He keeps it to the pit wall. Simicic stays in the slipstream. He pulls out now. DRS wide open into turn 1. He's on the outside, but can't do anything there. Dennehan breaks pretty late and fends him off with relative ease in the end.
And what this also does is it forces Dennehan to use his battery to defend. So is this a battery game potentially? Or obviously Simicic needs to dump it as well to try and get that close. But certainly it is an interesting race. We saw Simicic back off for about 4 or 5 laps and then goes for it again. So he definitely thinks he's got more pace, because if he goes ahead, it'd be a bit silly if he gets ahead and all of a sudden Dennehan is flying back past him. So he obviously thinks he's got the pace, just needs to find the way past, which is, as ever, the more tricky part in the World Championship. The drivers are at such an amazingly competitive level. They are so close, on lap times. Even the top 7 still within 5 seconds. We're not really talking even about Callas in that 7th place, but he's only 5 seconds off the lead after 28 laps. That is how close the racing is.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. That was a remarkable save as well from Simicic. Just a huge slide on the curb there through Spoon. And The run might not be good enough now for a go at the final chicane, although the speed is quite phenomenal. Dennehan will have to defend from the outside, and maybe this is Simicic's turn to go through. They're both jockeying for the DRS line, and Dennehan lets him have it. So he's through into the lead, is Simicic, but will Dennehan come straight back through again? Just as he did before, it looks like he may well do. Into the slipstream. He's not quite as close as Simicic was last lap, and he can't go through. Now is the chance. Simicic leads properly. Can Dennehan stay with him?
He needs to bolt. This needs to be a qualifying lap from Joni Simicic to try and get Dennehan out of that DRS and maybe even the slipstream range if he wants to be able to really hold on to this. Because look in the background, Brackshock, he's closing up with the battling. Of course, you slow down a little bit, and the pink machine is coming for Dennehan as well. Simicic is pulling a bit of a gap in this first sector, but is it going to be enough by the time we get back round to the start-finish line?
Simicic is in World Championship winning position at the moment by 3/4 of a second, and he's nearly got the DRS already out of sight for Jake Dennehan. Now, what's the energy like? How much have they got left respectively? Has Dennehan got enough to stay with Simicic, and who's going to break first? Who's got more on the way in towards this battle? It's now 9/10. Simicic uses a bit more on the run towards Spoon Curve. He's extending that further. It's nearly a second, and it's teetering on a second now. Dennehan losing more and more time with every lap, and Simicic is on his way. More than a second with 14 laps to go. He's in World Championship winning position.
Oh, and he gets outside of that sort of 1.2 seconds to be outside of slipstream range as well. It's just on the limit. Does Dennehan have any battery left to sort of push himself in? Oh, look in the rears. Really on the limit there. Coming through the final chicane, and he is outside the 1.7 at least, so no DRS this time around. Yeah, he's going to have to start looking in his mirrors maybe for Brackshock if he doesn't have this speed. But does Simicic also have enough himself to keep pushing like this and hold that gap?
Yeah. It's a case of what we saw at Bahrain a little bit. Simicic went through on the penultimate lap on Dennehan, tried to get away, it failed, and Dennehan came straight back through again. He doesn't want a repeat of that. He wants to put this race out of sight a long way before lap 53. And Dennehan, I don't think, can stick with the pace at the moment. I said earlier on, I didn't get the feeling that Simicic was just waiting and watching and holding himself back, but it seems that he may well have been, because Simicic now is streaking away from Jake Dennehan. Through Degner 2 they go, and he's got no answer at the moment. Unless Simicic runs out of energy here, electrical energy, then there's no way Dennehan can get back here into DRS, surely, unless there's an undercut throughout the pit stop phase.
Oh, yeah, this is an intense part of the race. You've got all these drivers coming down as well. Dennehan can't let a snowball effect happen. He needs to keep these guys in behind, but certainly very, very fast and frantic racing up towards the front. As of course, more pit stops will be coming the way of these drivers at some point, so you need to start thinking about that. Pit gap for the leader, we said about 22 seconds, so he'll come out right behind Yannick Bock. But for these guys a bit further off the lead, they need to look out for that Mark Schluter car in P11 by the time they get to their pit box. So maybe that's why they're pushing as well, to try and get ahead of those drivers. And that's certainly something to think about. Mrocek closes up for that P3.
Yeah, I think Mrocek's going to be Bock is going to be a factor in that figuring as well for the pit stops and traffic and so on. Brackshock stays third, then Mrocek not really close enough here, neither is Siebel on the run down towards turn 1. So Simicic would gain 28 points on Jordan as things stand, and that is more than enough for him to take the title away from him, and he would gain 5 on Dennehan as well, which would also give him the position. In fact, Dennehan needs to beat Simicic no matter what happens today, whether they're fighting for the win or not. He needs to beat Simicic here in the Japanese Grand Prix, or he will be out of it. Colin Spork's out of it. He's retired from the race. David Mrocek needs a bit of a miracle, really, although he is still having a good race himself. It's in Simicic's hands, and with just over 20 laps to go, he's got a second and a half now.
Yeah, and what I'm really thinking at this point as well is if obviously Burst wrap up the drivers and constructors here, that just puts the pressure off everyone, to be honest, coming into that final race. So that's really going to open up the doors to, for Brazil to be sort of wide open, because the top teams aren't going to be practicing to the absolute last tenth of a second, because it's not going to change their finishing position as such. So that's potentially something to look forward to in a couple of weeks' time as well. But of course, these drivers in behind who are not fighting for the championship as such, Brackshock, even Burlak and Callas, they are really going to be trying to get onto this podium here at Suzuka. As it stands though, lap 31, coming on to lap 32, Simicic has almost got Denhan out of that slipstream range. In fact, he might just, it's about 1.2, 1.3 seconds to even get a few thousandths, but it looks like he's definitely pulling away.
It does. It was up as high as 1.5, 1.6 earlier on in the lap, and now Rodger's in. So he's covering off the undercut ever so slightly, you could argue, as we got it. Oh, someone's on fire! Hakimi's on fire, and not in a good way. He's in the gravel, and sorry, I've not seen that in rFactor 2 for a while. Oh, he's back on fire again. Dear me, this isn't good, is it?
Yeah, just press escape, mate. That is not coming back.
No.
Fortunately,
Dear me. Get out.
Driver not injured in this form racing, sim racing, but certainly a big crash there. Yannick Bock coming in for his next pit stop alongside Saligianis for Visceral as well. Hopefully Bock, no speeding penalties this time. And what is that? 21 laps to go. I mean, that's on the edge, but definitely possible if he wants to go to the end.
Has he used two compounds? He's on hards again. Has he used mediums yet? I don't remember him on mediums.
Yeah, to be honest, that would make sense. If it's not about 15 laps, it'll be, sort of 8-9 laps at the end on the medium. So that does make sense.
Yes, he's very much put his... I mean, we're going to find out of these next pit stops, really, aren't we? Whether it's 2 stops or 3 stops. We're going to find out for sure anyway, because anyone who goes back on the hards again, although I don't think they will surely be going for only a 3-stop race. Just make me laugh, by the way. The obviously drivers they have in rFactor 2 when there's a fire, just unbothered. Just they'll let their backs burn. It's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Alex Siebel then on the back of Jonas Brackshock as they fight for a podium place here. He ducks in very late. I think he was under instructions there to not follow Brackshock. If the Hungarian went in front of him, I think he would have stayed out.
Yeah, I think that was one of those do the opposite to the car ahead moments. I think you're right. It's a very, very late call there from the Scuderia Ferrari eSports team. Anthony Nitzpon, the engineer for Siebel, and Jordan. Note for Jordan as well is, of course, in that P20, is getting a point, but some way off Mergely. But for Siebel, where is he going to come out? Because that's going to be very important. Of course, Mrocek, it seems, also being in the pit lane, and the undercut has worked once again for the burst driver. He's got a good second and a half on the Ferrari.
Yep, and that's going to be a concern for Brackshock, Burlak, Callas. All of them will be a bit worried about that. By the way, Jordan needs to finish 4th if Simicic is going to win the race. Jordan needs to be 4th to keep the title fight alive. In fact, I think he needs to be 3rd, actually. Anyway, yes, it's not looking great news for Dennis Jordan at the moment. Even though he is getting a point, he needs other results to go his way. He needs something to happen to Jonas Simicic. And as you mentioned, it's not since this time 3 years ago, in fact, even more than 3 years ago, at the Dutch Grand Prix, when Simicic had his last DNF. And I think that was even a technical fail. I think he even disconnected, didn't he? It wasn't even a proper DNF. Yeah, and I believe it was even on the first few laps of the race. Then we had a massive fight between Jordan and Burlak for the win. But obviously the nature of Zandvoort, Burlak couldn't get past Jordan. And Jordan took his and Evolution Motorsports, as it was back then, their first victory in the World Championship, as that was their debut season. We've got another pitter of Jonas Simicic from the lead. He's come in. An interesting note on that battle between Mrocek and Siebel. Siebel is on the medium tyres, so Mrocek will need to use them in the final stint. But Siebel, he's gone in early, and he's going to use that extra speed to try and get past this stint. And Simicic is on hards, so 3 stops here for these guys, and he has come out ahead of Mrocek, although that's a big gain here. Now, surely if you're Jake Dennehan, just do something different to Jonas Simicic. Get your track position back and do a 2-stop race. He might not be thinking about that at the moment, but at the very least he can do another 19-lap stint, because that's what he did in the first point of this race, and then maybe stretch those mediums to 15 laps to the end here. It might not be the optimal race strategy, but if you get in front of Simicic, if you charge battery as much as you possibly can, then you can fight for this, because at the end of the day, there's a World Championship race win on the line, and it's about keeping the title alive as well. So if I was Dennehan, I would cut my losses at this point and go for a 2-stop race. Although, saying that, I kind of puzzled as to how he's let Simicic undercut him when he's the one who needs to make the difference. Unless that's what he was doing the whole time. Well, yeah. Potentially, but you're right. They're actually, realistically, not too far off stretching these out a few more laps and stretching the mediums out.
to maybe a 15 lap stint, as you say, to the end. So that's why it is right on the limit of the 2 and the 3 stops, and maybe that's what Denahan is doing, and that means Simicic needs to catch down all that extra time. So this is certainly going to be the one. Simicic is on the medium tyres, though. Actually, it's updated. He's on the medium tyres, so he needs to be pushing and filling that gap to Matt Williams ahead. So
the show is not over just yet. It's very much alive and well at the moment. The final laps of the Japanese Grand Prix, a title on the line. Can Simicic seal it today, or will he need those few points from Brazil to take his 4th world title and put himself closer to the greats of the Formula SimRacing World Championship from years gone past? Petr Birlak knows what that feeling's like, of course. Now 8 years since he won his title. Sorry for reminding him of that. Hope he's not listening. He's 3rd.
That makes me feel old as well, to be honest.
Sorry, Cam. He's searching for a podium right now. Brett Sucker held that before the stops, but they probably will have lost that now with the undercuts.
Yeah, but I think these guys are going for the 2-stop. I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously an interesting one with how close it is between the two, but a couple of teams think one way, a couple of teams think the other way. Let's see which one is going to work out. Of course, still 18 laps to go, plenty of time for things to happen with that. The issue is, right now, they're going to be losing time hand over fist. They're on old hards versus new mediums for Rd.8 Simicic. So that's going to be, of course, a big factor. Already 7 tenths just in the first sector Simicic gained on Jake Denahan. And, of course, that's just going to increase as the laps go on.
Yep. But that's to be expected for the moment. It will be later on where the real battle will take place. Lap 36 of the Japanese Grand Prix. Still 18 to go, including the one that we've just began. Braksuk, Birlak and Callas fighting for 2nd on the road at the moment. It will probably be behind Siebel by the end of this, and that will be 5th place when it all shakes out. Just further behind, Danny Vandeny and Zaragianis are fighting. We're getting to that point in the race where some might be able to go to the end here. If you've used your mediums and you're on the hards right now, then you might be able to go to the end, but I don't know if that applies to anyone, of course, because Smitchy Hoy was the only one to have used the mediums up until about 5 laps ago.
Yeah, it's going to be a convergence of the strategies as someone. Simicic already within that 6 tenths of a second, so definitely 16 seconds, I should say. So really starting to catch in. Zalagianis once again having this big battle with Vandeny, and they swap around once more as they fight for the points a little bit further down. Jan Grankvist, DNF. He's currently in that 9th position, but unfortunately we've lost the Super Venturi driver.
Where on earth has that happened? It's at Degner 2. It's another one at Degner 2, I'm afraid. And Jan Grankvist is out of the race. It would have been his first chance at a top 5 since Bahrain, all the way back 4.5 months ago. In fact, the last time we were in Asia, which is a weird coincidence, but it's Grankvist out the race. And now we've got less than 20, I think, still running in this one. Will he get points for that? 20th and not finishing? Probably not.
No, because there's a classification of 90%, which he hasn't quite made.
No.
Unfortunately, I think it'll be about
48 laps,
wait,
probably.
Yeah. Bad. And unfortunately for Grankvist, 3 DNFs in a row. Spa, Monza, and now here DNF. Also DNF'd at the second race of the season in Barcelona. So 4 DNFs out of 8 races. That's 50%. Such a shame. He's a fast driver and just hasn't put together the races, and sometimes seasons go like that, and it's been one of those for him.
Yeah, it was at the Degners, unfortunately. Getting confirmation of that, and a real shame for Jan Grankvist, who I hope will come back stronger in 2024, maybe even come back stronger at the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. Who knows whether we'll be seeing him there, of course. Make sure you join us again for those, by the way. We'll have the full setup again, Academy Pro and World Championship, racing all afternoon, basically. Final races of the season, final day at school, if you like. That's the kind of feel that it will have. And title fights and things to settle in championships, and lots of maths to go on for lots of commentators, I'm sure, as well, over the course of the day. Matt Williams is just ahead of Rd.8 Simicic. He'll still needs to make his final stop, does Matthew Williams, but he's going for a 2-stop here. Simicic's going for 3! Oh my word, that was close. He had to weave around Williams. It didn't make that easy for him, but why would he? It's a battle for position after all, and in the background, Siebel is going for this on David Mocek and does make it through.
Yeah, nice move there by Siebel, just like Simoncic in 130R. Not often you see moves there, to be honest, because as we say, often you wait for this main straight, but that's worked out for the Ferrari driver. And to be honest, they need to be pushing. They can't be slowing at this point. 12 seconds behind is Simoncic, but Denhan and co are going to be pitting soon, so that massive advantage that they have will be overcome. And then the rest of it will have to be done on basically the fact that they'll have probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 lap newer mediums at the end. So it's actually looking pretty healthy for Denhan as it stands, but the time is coming down very quickly for Simoncic.
Yep, it is. Of course, Denhan has now done 19 laps, or he will have done at the end of this lap. So is this the time he'll make his way into pit lane? The advantage for him is that he'll be in loads of clean air. That wasn't the case, of course, for the likes of Siebel, Moschik, or even Simoncic, who had to overtake Williams there, although that won't have cost him very much. Denhan will have the clean air and arguably be a little bit faster than Simoncic, even just for a few laps on those mediums. I know he needs to take care of them, but he will be faster briefly on those newer tyres, and then he'll have to do the defending towards the end of this race. It's just about what state are his tyres and electrical energy going to be in by the end of this one.
Yeah, Simoncic now within 10 seconds of Jake Denhan. Denhan's last lap was still a 33.9. That's actually not too terrible. The issue is Simoncic did a 31.03 seconds on the previous lap. Of course, with that overtake and a massive boost to get past Matt Williams. But not the pace that Denhan would have wanted. 34.1 this time around as well. Big advantage once more. Here's Yannick Bock trying to get past Peugeot. Peugeot running inside the top 10 for the first time this season. And there goes the TX3 driver getting up the inside. 3 overtakes into 130R in the space of a lap.
Yeah, I think Bock will cement 9th place now. I think he's too far away from any of the others to catch them, but he's probably faster than those around him right now. And it will be 12 points for Bock here this evening. So Denhan still leads. He's going on to a 20th lap with these hards, and clearly, as you said at the time, his pace isn't actually that bad, so it's worth continuing on because those mediums are at risk of falling apart at the end of 15 laps.
Yeah, they are being... I mean, it was a 31.6 again, so 2.5 seconds for Simoncic. But the thing for Denhan is, the longer he goes out, the better, because that means the less differential to Simoncic, and therefore the less gain Simoncic will get. So, of course, he's going to hemorrhage another possibly 5 seconds or so by staying out another 2 or 3 laps, but he will then still have a decent lead. So I think this is the right strategy, is to go long as long as he still has a decent margin. Simoncic will very quickly, though, be on the back of Sander Callas as it's now Mrocek's turn to get past Matt Williams. Can he do the exact same as his teammate did a couple of laps ago, up towards 130R, or is he going to wait to the main straight?
Looks like he's going to wait. He's not close enough, really, into the final chicane. Simoncic seems to be the only one who really enjoys making moves there, actually. But the others seem to wait for the first turn. As Williams goes a bit wide through the first part, Mrocek should be able to go through at the next part. The others, after 20 laps on the hards, have now decided to go in for their final stops of the day. It's medium tyres now for, for Denhan. A bit of a traffic jam. I don't think anyone was held up there. It was just a very nicely coordinated bit of I don't know what you'd call it even, but pit lane sequence is complete, and Denhan is on the mediums. He is within those 20 seconds. Right now, Simoncic would come out behind him, and that's all he needs to know, really. He needs to start out ahead, use that track position to his advantage the best he can.
Yeah, 14 laps to go. Should be okay on those medium tyres. Mazzalis and Peugeot just came out of the pit lane, so I assume that's actually probably him overtaking the Valet eSports driver. And Peugeot really have a nice race up into 15th place. Fletcher comes into the pit lane from 12th. So now the battle for the lead for Simoncic. He needs to stay out long enough that he's not losing too much extra time to Denhan on the new tyres, and that still gives him enough laps to overtake later on. Yeah. But it's a tricky one, because the longer he stays out, the bigger advantage he's going to have, but also potentially the more time he's going to lose if Denhan, who now has the newer tyres, starts putting in some fast laps. And
which compound is he going to put on when he goes into the pit lane as well? Because he has used 2 now. He's got the choice of all 3, really. Maybe the soft is out the question, but maybe he'll do something strange and put the softs on for 6 laps or something.
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. Potentially is an option, because he'll be massively quicker. The issue is if he pits now, he's not going to have the advantage, because 1 or 2 laps doesn't make the huge difference. When you start getting to 4 or 5 laps, that's when you have the difference. So it's a big moment. We need qualifying laps for Simoncic if he wants to win this race once more. Pit delta, as we said, was about 21, 22 seconds. As it stands, he'll come out behind Callas, behind Burlak, Brakshock and Denhan. 4 cars to overtake for the race victory.
Exactly. and that's going to be the problem. Has Denahan done enough here? It's a very tense situation at the Japanese Grand Prix, and you just do not know who is going to win it from here. You get the feeling it's going to be Simicic or Denahan, but stranger things have happened after all. Braxok now runs 5th, as I suspected he would. Burlak Callas behind as well. Siebel is obviously not with them anymore. He's up in 2nd place and will have a late stop as well, you would imagine. What's Mocek going to do? Because he's on the hard tyres, but which in theory, if you didn't have to use 2 compounds, he'd probably go to the end, I would imagine. But obviously that's not allowed, so I wonder what he's going to do. Yeah,
he's going to have to obviously go to the mediums in this final stop. And looking at the first sectors, Denahan 4/10 slower than Simicic, who obviously is on still these sort of older tyres now. So Denahan is not pushing to the limit straight away, but he doesn't need to. He's got a big, 4.5 second gap behind him. He can use up that time, because the issue with the tyres is a lot of the pace and everything comes from the temperatures and the pressures. So if you come into them too hard and you raise them too fast, you just start losing lap time. So if you bring them in slowly over the first couple laps, you don't use all of the speed straight away, that's often the best way to do it. So here comes Burlak.
Here we go into the final chicane. Oh, that's close. Very late to the brakes. Too late, surely. Oh, he's pulled it up. That's incredible. Burlak has got through into 5th place ahead of Jonas Braxok. I thought he was going for the other chicane, but he made it in time, braking super late and gets through. Let's hope he's not used all his energy to do that, and Braxok's not going to come through. Well, he's not going to. Petter Burlak into 5th place. That was incredible. I thought he was sailing off.
And that might be the move for 2nd place later on. We'll have to find out how everything works out, but awesome move there. And Petter Burlak almost won the race back in 2019, and unfortunately just got pit by Gosby that time around in a final chicane move, and then Gosby actually running out of fuel to the line, but managing to hold on to it. So Burlak might want a bit of revenge from that, but can he catch down Denahan? 4 seconds and might be a bit of a tall ask, but certainly getting up into a potential 2nd place finish will be his best result of the season. I
would argue he nearly won the race in 2020 as well, even though that happened quite a long way from the end. Yeah, he might have won. Robin Panzar makes his way through on Martin Mergley for 14th place. They're still miles ahead of the likes of Dennis Jordan, by the way, who's still making up places, although I haven't seen him use any other compound than hards. Wonder if he's got another stop remaining back there. It doesn't really matter. Only really matters if Simicic falls by the wayside at some point throughout this latter point in the race. Now Siebel's in. So one medium stint done, another one coming up, you'd imagine. What's Simicic going to do there? How much longer is he going to leave it?
Oh, have Burst got the strategy right? Let's find out. It's going to be tense to the end. So Siebel, this is a good marker. So he was about 4 seconds-ish behind Simicic. So let's see where Siebel comes out and where Simicic is going to be 4 seconds up the road of that, because that is going to be the important one. And look, they're miles away. They're absolutely miles away. Here comes Matt Williams. Matt Williams is going to get Siebel as well. This 3-stop strategy might not work out.
Well, this is interesting. Siebel is behind Williams. Now, Simicic won't have this problem. He was a few seconds in front, but Williams may be catching Simicic at this point, and he won't want to leave it too much longer, will the Slovenian. So you need to be very careful. And then there'll be 4 overtakes to make, and possibly nearly 10 seconds of time to gain. There's Denahan. He's back on the podium. Is he just going to steal this right at the end? There's 10 laps to go at the end of this one, and he might just pull off the biggest steal we've seen for a while. I was sure at the time that Simicic breached a second ahead of Denahan that the race was done and the title fight was done, but no. Simicic has gone for a free stop. Denahan did the opposite, which is exactly what he should have done in that situation, whether he wins or loses here. And right now, it looks like it might pay off, but this is Jonas Simicic he's going up against. It's never impossible for him to win this race at the end.
And Schluter's had some sort of issue. He drops outside the top 10. So Zalagianis, pro driver reserving for Visceral, gets inside the top 10 as a shooter. I think he went off through Dunlop. He's coming back around, slowly dropping down to 13th place. But here is your battle. This is the important one. Rocek is into the pit lane as well, and they're going to absolutely fly past him. A lot of work to do for the Burst Esports Next Few cars as we come to the final few laps of the race. But what they do have, they stayed up long enough that they are going to have a pace advantage. Siebel there gets past Williams. That is an important move for him as well. But Bog, despite the drive-through penalty, is ahead of Rocek.
Yep, so Simicic's the only one left now to make a pit stop. he won't have the problems of being behind those guys, or maybe not. If he leaves it too much longer, then they will undercut him. And right now, the four directly behind are still gaining time on him right now. So net positions, Burlak would move up to second. Braxton would move back up to the podium again. He seems to have been running third almost all day somehow. And Callas would be just on the outside of that podium. And they'll all be defending those places because they will want podiums. It's not been a great season for the 2015 World Champion, now running in third place. And Braxton won't turn down an opportunity for another podium. His first since the British Grand Prix back in mid-July. He will want that place as well. So they're going to almost act as sort of unknowing Jake Dennehan teammates, you would argue. They're fighting their own battle, of course, but they're also helping Dennehan fight off Simicic, who now comes in with 9 to go.
Ooh, interesting one. Let's see where this is going to be. He'll be closer to Siebel than Callas, and then he's going to have to fight for that one. Interesting times. Who was that as well coming into the pit lane? Janos Brakshock comes in. Interesting. Wasn't expecting that. Late call from the Arnage driver, potentially throwing away a podium.
It's not a drive-through, is it? It's a drive-through. It's a drive-through. He's not stopped there, has he? No.
Yannick Bock as well coming in for
not
a late
drive-through for Bock, surely. It is.
What? Interesting.
It's another drive-through for... Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, he's just waiting a long time. Sorry, spoke too soon. But making another pit stop. Well, I don't understand that either, if I'm honest with you. So there we are. He makes his way in. Anyway, Simicic is fourth. 6.5 seconds or so to Dennehan. 9 laps to go. This is where it gets interesting. He needs at least 3/4 of a second a lap and 4 overtakes. 3 overtakes even.
Yeah, this gap is a bit less than I thought it was going to be, actually. I thought it was going to be nearer 8 seconds, so this is good. That's another couple of laps in hand that he has from that point. But as you say, he's gone... So the issue is he's gone so far to get the tyre advantage that he's now got less laps as well. So it's one of those, trade-offs. So let's see if it's going to be enough. He should have the pace advantage. Is it enough, though? Including overtaking, he might be able to get Callas. Issue for Callas, for him, is that Callas is inside the DRS of Burlak. And that is obviously just going to be a bit of a blocker up ahead. So tricky times for Simicic. At one point, we thought he was going to be winning the championship today with a so-called easy victory and potentially Burst Eastwell next year winning the Constructors, but it may not be a double victory for them. Let's see how these final few laps go.
As things run, Dennehan would gain 12 points and would bring that gap down to 20. That would still only require Simicic to have a top 10, but all of a sudden, that feels like a bit more pressure, probably double the pressure of finishing 18th, which is quite a long way down. 10th place feels like a losable sort of margin, if you like. And it also doesn't put the pressure on Dennehan to exactly win. He doesn't have to win if that situation stays the same. But it's already down to 5.5, 5.2, maybe 5 seconds by the end of the sector. Simicic is flying. Is the question going to be, will he run out of laps though? Because you're right, he does have 2 overtakes to make here as well as the one on Dennehan. And to be honest, I think Dennehan's been saving a lot of electrical energy here because that gap between himself and Burlak is pretty much halved.
Yeah, I think you're right. Dennehan has been basically waiting for this moment. Let's see if it's exactly like we're thinking. But yeah, whatever's going to happen to Simicic, he's going to have to use a lot of electrical energy to overtake Callas and Burlak. Callas, he's right on the limit of that DRS with Burlak. He's right there. If he loses that DRS, it might be game over for that P3. As in a couple of laps' time, Simicic is going to be all over the gearbox of him. What is nice, though, is we have, 6 different teams inside the top 6, which is something that you don't always see, but it's certainly been a varied race. Loads of drivers and teams up towards the front. Yeah,
and 8 in the top 9, so it's not bad at all in terms of team diversity at the front. Rodger will now go through. Callas is in now as well. They're all getting out of the way of Yannick Simicic. Oh, excuse me, it's DRS, not pit lane. Sorry, not looking correctly there at all. Sorry, that looked very similar to me there. Rodger does have to use the DRS. Can't get through on Williams. Wow, that confused me. Callas is still in front of Simicic, although now it's only a second. I think this time next lap he'll be under attack.
I tell you what, Siebel has done the absolute strategy blinder to get past Mrocek. Mrocek undercut him in that first stint, but since then the Ferrari drivers had the better pit stops, and Mrocek right on the limit there through Degner 1. And Jan Grankvist has posted a picture of him flying through that corner. That was how he DNF'd a few laps ago. unfortunately for him. But here is Simicic now on the back of Callas. He needs to get past first opportunity if he wants to make this work.
Yeah, if this goes wrong on the first attempt, then it could be a very difficult end to the race for Jurnej Simicic. Now then, through the second part of Spoon Curve they go, out onto the back straight. Simicic likes this opportunity down into the chicane, but Callas knows that, and he's using a bit of electrical energy himself to just close in on Burlak. Although Simicic uses more, he gets the speed through 130R. He's on the inside line, and Callas gives it over to him pretty much. He knows that this fight is with Burlak, and his podium place is not going to be because he finishes ahead of Jurnej Simicic. Now it's Petter Burlak in the way. 6 laps to go as they go over the line. Only 3 seconds to Jake Dennehan, who begins to stretch out that gap a little bit. Simicic will have at least a lap behind Petter Burlak in front of him.
Oh, this is a big moment for Simicic as well. He'll want to win the championship before Brazil because it just takes the pressure off him a little bit, and he's got 2 drivers to overtake if he wants to do that. The important one, of course, being finishing ahead of Jake Dennehan. Remember back to Barcelona, second race of the season, Simicic really had to fight for it. He had to get past 4 cars in that final stint for the win. He's got past one of them for a total of 3 this time around if he wants to make it work. I think he should be able to get Burlak. The issue is then he needs to get up and get behind Jake Dennehan. It's going to be a very tricky one, but once again, it needs to be one and done. Can't spend a lap extra behind Burlak.
Yeah, the problem is, I do agree that he needs to get through straight away, but the problem is, how much energy is he using to do this in relation to Dennehan? Because I really don't think the race leader has used a lot at all in the last 10 laps or so. How hard is Burlak going to fight this as well? Feels like we're rolling back the years to 2020 when these two fought over a world title. Eventually, Simicic took the title here with 1 race to go. Is it going to be the same in 2023 as Simicic heads down the inside of Petter Burlak and through he goes? And with 5 laps to go, it's 3 seconds for the lead of Jake Dennehan. The battle for this world title is coming up in a few laps.
Does he have enough to hold on for Burlak this straight? I think he should just about do. But you're right. How much battery has he got? He's going to have to use a lot of it. He's got the speed advantage, though, over Jake Dennehan, in theory. Although on the previous lap, he was only 1/10 faster due to the overtakes. But he also had a pretty clean overtake, so he should still be fast. So Dennehan's probably started to just speed up a little bit. That was pretty much Dennehan's fastest lap of the race. Only 0.5 off his fastest lap. So it's looking good for Jake Dennehan in terms of the speed. But Simicic is coming his way. It probably will come down to the final lap, final corner, final chicane of this lap.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have a chance this next time around, but by the end of lap 50, there's going to be at least 3 laps of Simicic attacking Dennehan. And he's got to throw everything at this as Dennehan if he wants to keep this title fight alive, if he wants to take his 2nd ever World Championship race win. He's been on pole now 3 occasions in the World Championship, all of them this season, of course. Twice in the last 3 races. He was on pole at Spa, of course. Now another iconic circuit, Suzuka, added to his list, and he's looking for a race win here as well. On board with Jurnej Simicic as he closes in 1.5, 1.6 seconds. Dennehan responds with a bit of energy there, I think. Simicic does the same. They're not going to be close enough on this lap by any means, but this time next lap, he'll be another 1.5 seconds closer, and they'll be right together on lap 50.
I want to see this lap from Jurnej Simicic. He was a second faster in the first sector, 0.5 seconds faster in the middle sector, and 1.5 seconds over the lap, 1.6 seconds over the lap. If he does that again, he'll be right on the back of Jake Dennehan with 3 laps to go. This might be enough. I tell you what, this might be enough for Jurnej Simicic, but how much energy does he have once he gets there?
I mean, the problem for Dennehan is that there's 4 laps to go, including the one they're on right now. If this was the last lap, then I'd be, saying this is a real nail-biter. But right now, the odds are in Simicic's favour. Now, the thing that does play into Dennehan's hands, that doesn't make a lot of sense, is the fact that with every lap, Dennehan's odds of winning do go up. If he can survive 1 lap, then the 2nd gets easier, then the 3rd gets easier, then the 4th is easier than that. So that's what he's got to think about. This first lap is going to be the hardest.
It certainly is. The issue for Simicic, though, is if he gets ahead too early, Dennehan can always have the opportunity to come back. So this is a tricky one, but as you're right, I think the first lap he gets there, that's the one where he needs to go for it. But this is certainly very intense. This time in the first sector, it was only, but still 0.4 seconds faster, and the 2nd sector marker will come up just before we enter 130R.
Well, does Denahan have the chance to come back? Because I think his tyres are not going to allow him to get anywhere near Simicic. If he lets him through for a lap, then he'll be gone. So Denahan needs to be wary of that. The gap only comes down by about 6 or 7 tenths this time around. I think Simicic has gone to town with the electrical energy, and he's not left very much for himself at the end here. Denahan certainly has. He had that gap over Burlak to just fall back into, and he did let that gap halve. He was in control of his tyres and his energy, and now he's beginning to bear the fruits of that. 6 tenths of a second. Simicic did crucially get the DRS, but no way was he close enough for a move that lap.
No, not enough, but he's got to keep working at it. Needs to keep on trying and keep on pushing, because at some point, as you say, Denahan's rear tyres are probably going to start giving up, and he's now within that proper slipstream, proper DRS range, and I'm sure he'll close up another couple of tenths by the time we get there. So this might be the lap. There's going to be 2 to go after this one, so 2 more occasions into that first corner. Otherwise, it will have to be the final chicane on the final lap if he wants to try and make the move. Oh, this is a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. The pace advantage, even just by staying out those extra, what was about 3-4 laps, is massive.
This is a very tense situation in the Japanese Grand Prix. To remind you, Simicic, championship leader, needs to finish ahead of Denahan to take the title today. If not, then it will go to the final race at Brazil. He, at the moment, would only need 18th place in that race, but even so, he would need to go there and do a job. Now, Denahan is looking for his second race win. With 2 laps to go on the line, he's got a big defence on his hands. He defends the inside line. He squeezes Simicic as much as he can, who goes round the outside through the first point. He's giving just enough room by Denahan. Through the second, he brakes before the DRS line so that he gets there, but Denahan accelerates at the same time and gets away. Now it's a quarter of a second. Denahan weaves around. Needs to be careful with that as the DRS opens. Simicic is close, and he can't quite get there. Oh, that's close. He's into turn 1, nearly on the inside. He can't do it. Wiggle on the exit, and he's still in second place. Denahan hangs on onto the penultimate lap.
Oh my God, how their wheels did not get caught together in that final chicane, I do not know. But did Simicic burn his battery to do that? Does he have enough to come back this time around? He's got another opportunity. Remember, there's still even 1 more lap after this one as well. 2 laps to go, including this one. He's got another couple of opportunities, but he just needs to make sure he has the battery to do it. He would have had to dump a lot to have that opportunity. It was a good one though. Tried it again in turn 1, but Denahan just having enough to hold on. Denahan sliding it into the hairpin this time.
This is off the scale right now. The Japanese Grand Prix coming down to the last lap for the 2nd year in a row between the 2 title contenders. There'll surely be 1 and 2 at the end of today, just as Colin Spork and Alex Siebel were at the end of 2022. They locked horns on the last lap at the Japanese Grand Prix over a year ago. Now it's for Denahan and Simicic in 2023. We're on board with the 3-time world champion as he bears down on the race leader. He's not got as much energy. Denahan's beginning to use up those reserves because he's saved it up. Simicic has had to use it to overtake. Denahan slides into the final chicane on the penultimate time. It's not a good exit at all. Denahan in huge trouble on the last lap, fighting for the world title. Simicic is on the outside. He's not got the speed though. Denahan's using all his energy here. Outside for Simicic. He goes around. He tries to get the race win at the very end. Denahan's going to squeeze him as much as he possibly can. And that one could be looked at. Denahan right to the limit and maybe over it. Simicic will be unhappy about that. He's still second on the last lap of the race.
Yeah, Denahan just squeezed Simicic off the track. Unfortunately, that is not looking good for him. Post-race, we'll have to find out about that one. But definitely, just going to the absolute limit. He already pushed Simicic onto those marbles. You could see Simicic really wiggling around. But is he going to need that? Is he going to have one final opportunity? He'll have to be into the final chicane, which they already had slight contact with a couple of laps ago. It's going to be one final push. They're both really struggling with those rear tyres. But this is what happens when you fight for a championship. You go to the absolute limit and you get some awesome side-by-side battles. It's so great to see. Just one final attempt to go.
This is the last chance for Jurnik Simicic to seal the title. One race before the end, as he did back in 2020 at this venue. Denahan has to use everything he's got now. How much energy has he got left? Simicic will have a little bit, and he's got quite a lot actually. He's going for it into the final chicane. It's the outside line for the world title. Simicic breaks later. Denahan, oh, he's got around. Simicic gets through. Jake Danahan spins around. And Rd.8 Simicic is going to win the VCO World Championship for 2023 by taking the Japanese Grand Prix. He is the world champion for the 4th time. And Jake Danahan is going to be second in the race and the championship as he has his heart broken in the very final chicane.
What a move in the end around the outside. Danahan, he was such on the limit of braking there, and we have to potentially see again if he was sort of locking the wheels, but he was really struggling to slow down, while Simicic just had enough energy to have one final attempt. He tried it in the first corner on the start of the final lap, but he had to make it work in the final chicane. And as it stands in this order, Simicic is the champion as well. We actually potentially have to look at the Constructors' Championship as well. Might be a double win for Burst, but certainly an incredible end to this battle at Suzuka. What a fight for the whole 53 laps. They were on each other's tail. They did different strategies, and it came to a head. What a way to finish Suzuka.
Absolutely. I think that is drivers and constructors, by the way. I think you're correct for Burst there. Rd.8 Simicic taking the win and the world title for 2023 ahead of Jake Danahan. Petter Burlak on the podium again here in Japan from third. Alex Siebel's late stop didn't really work out in the end. Couldn't get him a podium anyway. Sander Callis finishes fifth. David Brocek sixth ahead of Matthew Williams and Yannick Pop. Janos Braxot will be bitterly disappointed with that late drive-through. He finishes ninth ahead of Cosmo Pasuto to give Royal Blue 2 top 10s. Sergio Fletcher finishes in 11th ahead of Robin Panzer. Danny van der Neet at 13th with Martin Mergley on the soft tyres late on. Dennis Jordan's 6 points are not enough to keep him in the title fight either. Stavros Mercedes, Kostas Rambukas and George Zalogiannis make up the end of the field. Mark Suter DNF, but he might have got enough laps for points. Jan Vrakvis certainly didn't. He finished 20th. 9 retirements today, in fact. Mika Hakimi, Michi Hoyer, Zoltzuks, Damian Scobron, Giordano Valeriano, Lauren Kurzmakers and Colin Spork were the others. So that is the Japanese Grand Prix. For the second year in a row, it comes down to the very last lap. For a circuit that people complained about that you can't really overtake on, it's certainly proving the doubters wrong over the last couple of years, and I'll happily admit that I'm one of them. It's been a great venue over the last 2 years of the VCO World Championship, and it has crowned our 2023 champion. Rd.8 Simicic is a 4-time champion.
Yeah, what a track, to be honest. I know in some ways it's difficult to overtake and whatnot, but when you do get those side-by-side moments of the race, it's so narrow around this track. It's so on the limit that you get some absolutely incredible side-by-side action. And that battle for the lead was insane. The attempts, the side-by-side that we had multiple times. Yeah, what a moment for those drivers, and really put on a show for us.
They certainly did. What a show it was. Welcome, Rd.8. Good to have you with us. We step into some interviews after the race. It's your 29th Grand Prix win in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, but more importantly, it's your 4th world title. Tell us about those last few laps as you tried to get through on Jake.
Well, let me undonut myself. Right, so now it was such an incredibly fun race with 2-stop versus 3-stop. We didn't expect anybody to go to stop, but then the pit window just never opened. There were always cars in the first stint, so we kept extending, and then in the end, I knew that, well, I have never tried to stop her. I don't think it's a viable option. So I just needed to push Jake, and it all came down to the last lap in the end. So there was a bit of paint trading, I guess, but in the end I won on track, and I'm super happy with the result.
Absolutely, and I mean, obviously with Dennis falling away as well, he can't catch you anymore either. It's the second time as well you've secured it around Japan as well, which is weird. But anyway, how do you feel now after only 8 races this season, still 1 to go, of course? How does it feel now to be a 4-time champion of this series?
Well, Matsusaka is the best track in the world, right? So always good to win the championship here and then have one more enjoyable race in the end without any stress. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun. I've been asked to wear a suit and a tie again. I don't know if that will work, but let's see. But it will be for sure a very enjoyable Interlagos.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what your plans were for Interlagos. Are you doing anything silly now that nothing's on the on the line? No suit and tie.
I never expected to win the championship now. I thought it's gonna be even tighter in the standings going into the last round, as I never really recovered from COVID yet, so I'm still kind of weak. But it was just enough power to do a very good fuel up. So yeah, but I never got to think of the last round yet. So everything is like cards are opened, everything is still to be decided. So let's see how we can celebrate that one.
Open to offers. Let's see what what we can do for the final round. Yoni, congratulations on the championship here this evening. Thanks very much for coming to chat to us, and yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you so much also for the commentating the whole season. It was a nice one.
Thanks very much. Yoni Simicic there, winner of the Japanese Grand Prix and the 2023 VCO World Championship here in FSR. We're also joined by Jake Danahan, but yes, he's got a mic plugged in now, which is good. Welcome in, Jake. Good to have you with us. So close to your second win of the season, your second ever win in this World Championship, but settling for second now for the second time. That's a lot of twos. In the last 3 rounds, just tell us about those last few laps that you were battling with, Yoni.
Yeah, I tried very hard, as you saw. It was quite on the limit, I'd say. But the race is all Jorne's because yeah, he drove great all race. His pace was amazing. I just couldn't keep up with him, and yeah, he made me run out of battery in that second stint, which also didn't help me. But yeah, he had amazing pace. It's very well deserved.
What about the strategy going into this one? Because we were speaking about, is it going to be a 2-stop? Is it going to be a 3-stop? What was your plan going in, and then how did it change, if it did, over the race?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a clear 2-stop for the win, but then I saw Jorne pit pretty early on for that last 2 pit stops, and yeah, I was a bit confused, but he pulled off a master class, so yeah. And
that, of course, means that I think you're now second in the championship as well, by the way, even with that second place. Any plans for Interlagos? Really, now that you can't win the title anymore, but obviously it's still second place, I guess, to fight for. What's the plan for Interlagos?
I mean, I'd love to keep that second position. I never really expected to be up here at the start of the year, so top 2 would be amazing.
All right, well, we look forward to it. Jake, congratulations on P2, even if you may be slightly disappointed with it, I suppose, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And finally, Petr Berlek joins us as well from third, also on the podium here tonight. Petr, welcome in as well. Good to have you with us, back on the podium again in the World Championship, which is good to see. You were there, of course, at the Belgian Grand Prix. It's another third place for you here tonight. How does it feel to be back on the podium again after that race?
Yeah, it feels great. That went better than expected, to be honest. I was tossing up between wing settings until today and this morning, so I chose the slightly lower downforce one, and looks like that worked out in the end. And regarding my race, I don't know, it was quite hectic. I was trying to not get too much dirty air, but also manage my battery. And ideally, I would have liked to jump a few people ahead of me, but we all pitted on the same lap. So, and once I saw Alex and David go for a 3-stop, I knew it was possible maybe to keep ahead of the train and try to defend from the head of the train, yeah.
And in the end, it worked out. I mean, what was the strategy like going on throughout that race? Because you stayed out for the 2-stop in the end, fending off some of the others who did 3 stops and ended up finishing behind you. Is that a plan that you always had from the start of the race?
Yeah, the plan was always 2-stop. We knew 3-stop was a possibility. It was maybe on paper just a little bit faster, but that's without traffic. So. Yeah, since we were on lap 30 and managing to a 2-stop, then it didn't make much sense for us to go for a 3, because I had enough tires in the second stint to do a 2.
Well, it worked out in the end. Congratulations on third place, Petr, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much to all three of you. And, well, that'll just about do it for the Japanese Grand Prix, Cam. Another fantastic race at this circuit, which continues to deliver 2 last lap passes for the win in 2 years now, which is rare at any circuit, really, let alone this one. The FSR World Championship delivering a great race again.
Yeah, wow. Even for the interview, he's not quite calmed down from that one. It's such an intense race, an amazing battle between Denahan and Simoncic. But Simoncic came out on top. And it also seems like in the teams, Burst winning the Constructors' Championship before the final race as well. So big day for Yone and his team, which means all gloves are off. Sao Paulo in a couple of weeks' time. At least the top positions are sorted out. We still have the ones below that. But yeah, it's certainly going to be a more open race, I think. Yeah, the top 3 seem pretty settled. I think Mocek might be too far away now to get a top 3 in the championship, of course. However, Jordan and Denahan will be fighting for second in the championship. And of course, it's the final race. So it will be a bit of fun, hopefully, the Brazilian Grand Prix. Hope you'll join us in a couple of weeks' time for Academy Pro and World Championship racing in 2 Sundays' time. A big thank you to everyone who's been tuned in here this evening. I've been Ewan Leary alongside Cam Rodger. Daniel Costello has been behind the cameras this evening. Until we see you in 2 weeks' time for the Brazilian Grand Prix, it's goodbye for now.
Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
Who's going to break Hastings' world title?
For Mike Gosby. Oh, he's done it. And look at these 2 go. Ichi Hoy is going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.